Well, good morning, everyone. This is a committee of the whole, and so you know how that works. We have an agenda. We're going through a number of items. You're able to raise your hand and participate from the gallery. And then at the end of the meeting, there'll be a section where you can bring up other topics. So feel free to raise your hand and contribute on any of the items we're talking about. How are we doing, Les?
Go ahead, I'll be a while getting, it's recording, it's just not live streaming right now.
Public days when
Be one of those mornings.
Morning, Council. Call this meeting to order. And are there any changes to the agenda? We've got a straightforward agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda of March 11th? Councilor Coyle? Councilor Thompson? You don't need seconds? It's my fault. And we have minutes from February the 11th Committee of the Whole. A motion to adopt the minutes. Studley, Councillor Studley. Councillor Mosley. Don't need a second. But such enthusiasm, I appreciate. All those in favor? And that's all the minutes. We have 3 delegations, so keeping it to 15 minutes or so. We're not in as big a rush this morning as we have been in other times. So the first petition delegation is the BC Wildfire Branch. Do we have representatives here from them? Sir?
Yeah, good morning.
What your name is?
My name is James Katasanoff. I'm the local wildfire officer with BC Wildfire Service.
Welcome, James. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time to invite us and listen this morning. I thought it'd be a good time of year to introduce the BC Wildfire Service as well as educate the local council on what we do and some of our local staff that are located right here in town. So the BC Wildfire Service, we're part of and mandated by the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. So we've been part of the Forest Service since the early 1900s for over about 100 years. So we're still currently part of that ministry and a branch of that ministry. Organizational structure for the BC Wildfire Service is we're headquartered out of Victoria with Provincial Wildfire Coordination Center out of Kamloops. So that facility runs our provincial wildfires during core season, prioritizes resources provincially, and we work closely with our Provincial Wildfire Coordinating Center. The province then is broken into 6 fire centers. So we're part of the Southeast Fire Center that's based out of Castlegar. So the boundary fire zone, our area of operations geographically is generally will cover our response area from about the top of the Anarchist Summit to the top of the Paulson north, encompassing Granby Park, and then it comes right into the community of Big White. So it's generally one of the smaller zones in the province. There's 31 fire zones and zone operations centers in the province. So provincially, we have about 117 initial attack crews, and we have 30 unit crews, approximately 12 rappel crews, and we have 10 para-attack crews located in Fort St. John. So kind of the way we operate a lot of times is we move these resources around based on prioritizational need. So like in 2015, for example, we would cycle a lot of these resources down to our operations center at the airport and manage them and manage the fires out of there. So there's a lot of scalability in our resourcing. Additionally, part of wildfire response, we contract a lot of resources due to just the scope and scale of the fires, and a lot of those contracted resources are local resources. We contract aviation resources, heavy equipment for guard construction, contract fallers, and contract fire crews to kind of deal with surge capacity as fire seasons increase in activity. BC Wildfire Service, we also manage a centralized air tanker fleet. So our air tanker groups are pre-positioned provincially. We typically, in the middle of fire season, have a air tanker group position in Penticton and one in Castlegar. So those are more common areas. Grand Forks historically was originally an air tanker base years back. I don't know exactly when that ceased, but before we were here, it was an air tanker base. So our core season staffing at our operations center out at the airport is approximately 37 personnel. So we were established in 1998. The old fire base was located in Rock Creek. Folks probably driven past the remnants of it there, and there's a new fire hall on the site there. We still operate a forward attack base there. So we have, we've upgraded our facility in 2009. We've brought in a triple wide trailer, and then 2016 we doubled our warehouse capacity there. Locally, we operate 3 initial attack crews. So we went from 2 to 3 crews after the 2015 fire season and increased our staffing there, as well as we collaborate locally with the school district and implement a junior initial attack program as a kind of strategy for local recruitment and retention. So all in all, we have 3 initial attack crews and 4 officers based out of our local office, and then we hire 10 fire wardens around the regional district in strategic places that those folks help in busier fire seasons on fires. So it's important to note the scalability of our program to actively expand and contract as we need. So in a typical season when we're busy, all of the crew direction, fire prioritization, logistical support, procurement of contractors, medical emergency planning, that's all coordinated and managed out at the airport. And we're supported then by our regional fire center in Kamloops, and then our provincial coordination centers. So they'll respond to requests at the local level and supply resources as needed. So there's a real scalability there. In 2017, we probably had a couple hundred people in and out daily, getting their mapping support, support for tactics and strategy, prioritization. They functionally report to staff in our operations center at the airport. So legally, our mandate, you're responsible for management of wildfires on Crown land outside of local government fire protection areas. That being said, we have good relations with all the fire departments around the regional district and the Grand Forks Fire Department. There's never going to be a situation where we're arguing over turf. We're there to help each other out, and we support local fire department and local government with fire response when support is needed. Priorities for us as well, it's, you know, in busy seasons when you're overwhelmed with a lot of fire starts, we prioritize based on threats to communities, threats to property, public infrastructure, and a lot of times that forest resources is the last on the priority list in our priority ranking. So safety of our responders and the workers that we're putting out, those folks that we throw on the fires, are always paramount priority. We do a lot of work for preventing wildfires through legislation, fire bans, some field management activities. Our fire wardens are engaged in fire patrols at the recreational areas of the district regularly in the core season. And as well as we provide emergency response support for local government. Biggest example is the recent flooding here. Well, we have a labor force that's in communications, self-contained, and medical operations, communications, so it works well in supporting EMBC and local government with events like the flooding. So those local relations at the local level are paramount, and it's good to establish and maintain them. So some recent events, obviously the flooding from our support, we mobilized crews, and the picture on the left, initially we brought them to our operations center at the airport, and they were tenting out there. We got there's generator, there's fiber optic capabilities there, so as far as managing wildfire out of there, it functions very well for us. This is a quick a map of last year's fire activity. It was the busiest fire season on record. The boundary fire zone, we had about 34 wildfires last year. Definitely we're fortunate in not getting a lot of lightning. We did have one lightning storm of significant concern that went up the Granby that started the Lynch and the Toronto fires in one event there that were a challenge to us for a period of time there. Statistically, throughout the last 10 years of fires, this is in the boundary fire zone, typically around 40 fires on average. You can see 2015, 136 fires were managed out of the zone here, and then 2009 was another significant year. There were other, 2003 and 1994 were also very busy. So in addition to wildfires, we do respond to incidences, nuisance fires and smoke chases. So there's open burning that's in non-compliance, abandoned campfires. There's a lot of other fire-related events that we respond to through the course of the year, as well as during really high hazard periods. There are smoke chases. We don't take any chances, so at times we've responded to reports and found nothing, but it's still a part of that maintaining kind of rapid response capabilities. Statistically, provincially, on average, there's about 2,000 wildfires. The majority are caused by lightning, specifically to Grand Forks. We're in that fire-based ecosystem, that natural disturbance level 4, so natural fire will continue to be part of our ecosystem and what we have to deal with. So, but typically the majority are caused by lightning, and we work try to do what we can to reduce the human-caused fires. Those are the ones that we can potentially control. And this is the last. It's a recent graph that we put together, part of the recent climate and farming and ranching preparedness workshops put on lately, but some of our fire station data, specifically the Beaverdale station, goes back to 1970. This is a graph of days in high to extreme hazards. We have about 5 weather stations that automatically calculate our fire hazard. And there's definitely a trend going on long term. One thing that stuck out to me is you know, in the last, since 2003, those really low years aren't happening as frequent, so that high hazard has been around, and we've had to manage and deal, or we're adapting to manage and deal with it the best we can, and we'll have to wait and see if that continues. And that's kind of all that I have at this point. I just wanted to just introduce us and kind of let you know that we're here, what we do, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, Councillor?
Yeah, I see, if I'm reading the graphs right, that it looks like the human caused are getting smaller as we go. Is that because of public education?
Yeah, a lot of it will be education based. A lot of it will be you know, we aggressively patrol in the boundary, a lot more possibly in other jurisdictions. I'm not too sure if that's a significant trend that's going to continue, or just a fluctuation, but we'll do what we can to reduce human caused fires the best we can through a combination of legislation and education and enforcement.
Thank you.
Further questions, Councillor?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, thanks, James, for your presentation, and Josh. I guess my question is about fuel reduction programs. I know there's been an ongoing one in the Copper Ridge area. When I look at the bush around the city, it is a little bit overwhelming, the need for fuel reduction. I mean, I'm not talking the city, but the city and you guys would be impacted by a fire in our immediate area. So what kind of fuel reduction programs are you offering this region?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So our Copper Ridge project has been ongoing by our local crews there. That's come to conclusion last year. We completed that in and around the periphery of Copper Ridge. Beyond that, our staff are going to be looking at additional projects in the general area. Recently, there has been some funding contributed by the province through management of hazard reduction for local government and communities through the Forest Enhancement Society of BC and the Community Resiliency Initiative. So there is funding for local government to leverage with hazard reduction, and we're kind of going through the process right now of standing up those programs and getting some fuel reduction on the landscape the best we can in collaboration with local governments and ultimately private landowners as they fire smart their personal properties. So there is funding. I can forward some of the websites for the specifics on how that could be leveraged.
Yeah.
For your review.
Yeah, please do so.
Yeah.
Just one more follow-up. So just to clarify, James, then the local government must initiate an application for those funding.
Correct. A lot of the local government can leverage that funding for hazard reduction planning, operational activities. It goes through a application and a vetting process, and there's application deadlines throughout the year. So a lot of it, there's been recent injection in funding for that provincial funding, so it is available to local government.
Thank you.
Further, Councillor?
A couple of questions. Thank you for the presentation again. Prescribed burns. Have you had any in the area? Any planned?
Yeah, thanks for that. So prescribed fire, we definitely want to increase managed wanted fire in the area as in the appropriate location for hazard reduction and ecosystem management. So we have over the recent years done a few prescribed burns. There was one up the Gilpin Forest Service Road probably about 5 years ago. We're planning one up Gibbs Creek this spring in collaboration with the West Boundary Community Forest Forest Enhancement Society. Some of this risk mitigation funding was leveraged for that project. So we're anticipating a small burn, relatively small burn up in there. There's ecosystem restoration objectives involved with it. So it's a really great project that encompasses, we're working with industry as well as the greater Ministry of Forest Lands Natural Resource Operations to do that project, to achieve both ecosystem benefits and surface fuel reduction, as well as I believe there's going to be some replanting of a more resilient forest post-harvest in that area too.
Can you also talk about your relationship with the states, Washington State, and across the line?
Yeah, so we haven't done any prescribed fire projects with Washington State. We do partner with them. We do annual preparedness meetings. We'll meet with the agencies in the U.S. The recent years, due to our stress resourcing capacity, we have partnered with them. They've come up and assisted us on fires. The recent fire in Santa Rosa, U.S. Forest Service sent crews, and they worked with our crews up there. We as well have an agreement along the border where there's a lot of flexibility for us to cross the border and respond to a fire as well as them. So we work very well with our U.S. counterparts in this area. Yeah.
One last question, Mr. Mayor. Your facilities out at the airport, you're happy with what you have there? You use more infrastructure, or do you plan on expanding it all? Or?
Well, we're definitely, some of our recent upgrades, like the doubling of our warehouse and our recent triple wide is dated 2009. We do have a single wide that I believe is dated 1960 something. So we're looking to upgrade that and naturally work with the city as to what the best solution, where we best fit in with future development, and where we can still continue to operate there, because it is an ideal location being located at the airport.
So your reference to resilience, planting more resilient, are you talking about cottonwoods and alders and things that are seen to burn less?
Yeah, instead of a monoculture stand, a lot of times that sometimes replanted, larch and Douglas fir and some of these fire resilient species mixed in, and there may be some deciduous as well. I'm not a forester, but I know Dan McMaster with the West Community Boundary Forest is looking into that, and exactly that, a more diverse mix of species that are going to be replanted that is less susceptible to catastrophic wildfire.
Further questions? Any questions from the gallery? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your report. It's a concern we all have for the coming summer, and I'm glad you're on the job.
Well, thank you for inviting me. We do got our first crew online, our second crew at the beginning of April, and our third crew will be fully staffed by the end of April.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second delegation is Gallery 2. Take the hot seat. Morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
James, take it.
Did you take
Identifying yourself for the minutes.
My name is Tim Van Wyk. I'm the Director Curator at Gallery 2, and with me representing the board is Teresa Rosales, Board Chair. It wasn't Shannon. All right. Thank you. So as per our fee-for-service agreement, this is our quarterly update to the Mayor and Council. As well, This is our last presentation before our year end, which is March 31st. So we've had an excellent start to our exhibition season. Just to keep you all in the loop, we have 3 exhibits that are on until April 6th. In the Reed Gallery, Deborah Thompson, who is a Nelson artist, presents these lovely and thought-provoking paintings, Pendulum, A Call to Unreason. There's also a series of viewer or user-friendly sculptures that you can handle in the gallery. So we've had a really good response from the local schools coming in. There was a school group in last week. As a corollary to that, in the Fog Gallery, Stephanie Kellett's installation piece called Rewilding, it's a good follow-up to the fire service piece. It's an installation work that she did in Chilcotin, but it's these really meditative tinder bundles that she made, and she juxtaposed them against the landscape of Chilcotin. And the piece is really about our relationship with nature and the landscape, and it's quite timely in terms of how we're looking at impacted landscapes and various practices. And then for fun, in the West Gallery, I've curated an exhibition called Grand Forks Modern. It's works from our permanent collection, which it turns out we have a really nice collection of late 60s printmaking works, and it was great fun to pull those out and present those as a juxtaposition to the other shows. On a side note, I'll be giving an exhibition tour and a curatorial talk on Saturday at 1 p.m. As well, we did, for the exhibition opening here, we tried something a little different. We had an evening opening on a Friday night, and I'm really thrilled to say we had 60 people out on a Friday in February to look at art. So that's quite gratifying to have that support from the community. Getting to the more operational updates, this is our fiscal update to the end of January. This is with 2 months remaining in the budget year. I'll draw your attention to the bottom right-hand corner. Our net revenue, we've budgeted to be behind about $4,000, and we are actually only behind $1,700. So our budget variance, we're up a couple of $1,000s for the year, which is where we want to be coming into the last couple months. It's been an interesting year with the floods, and I feel like we've managed quite well, both on the fundraising end and managing our expenses. The other piece I'll say about this budget is some of the revenue, or some of the expense costs are for capital projects that, while we did not budget for them, we did get funding for them. And I'll touch on those as I get through the year in review. So 2018-2019 is when my first full year as director curator at the gallery. So I thought we could go through some of the highlights. First and foremost, with our mandate of arts and culture, we've had a great suite of dynamic exhibitions and public programs. We've had a real range and lots of good feedback and visitation. As well, we had a successful fundraising year. Our Starlight Benefit Dinner Raffle did really well, and then our 2 main fundraisers, Taps and Tapestry in the summer. The smoke cleared quite nicely for the evening, and it was a huge success beyond our expectations. And then, of course, the wine tasting went really well. Those are our solid core fundraisers, and we look forward to bringing them back this year. As well, we had several partnerships and programs. One of the things, Daniel called me the Saturday of the flood and said, "Can you open the building? Service BC needs a place to be." So we were happy to provide emergency space, and then that morphed into they were in the building for the summer, which was, we were happy to do our part and provide that space. And it was an opportunity to bring people into the gallery that hadn't been in it since it was in the basement of the library. We also worked with the Chamber of Commerce to move the Movies After Dark program onto our grounds while City Park was being rehabilitated. And then there's been several of the flood recovery open houses that happened at the gallery. And again, this is part of our strategy of making the gallery a place for the community and keeping it open to these other events. It's not strictly arts and culture, but it's a great venue for things. We're centrally located, we have great parking, and it's a beautiful facility. We were able to get some funding through the BC Museums Association to put on Family Day activities this year. Usually the established wisdom was that Family Day happens outside and no one wants to come inside on Family Day. This year we had almost 100 people through the building doing crafts and scavenger hunts on both floors of the gallery. It was a great success. And it was a good kind of counterpoint to the other activities that went on downtown. I don't think we took away from that. It was more in augmenting it and spreading it out to our end of town. Some of the more background highlights, this year we were able to bring extended health benefits in for our staff. And we did several capital projects, which I referred to earlier. So the regional district provided us with a grant and aid to upgrade our phone system, which was long overdue. And then in conjunction with this, it required some IT infrastructure updates. And we've been working in partnership with the city and school district on that to provide us with a system that we can afford to maintain over the years. And then last time I presented, I was talking about our exterior signage and wayfinding, so I won't get into it too much, but I'm happy to say that in conjunction with our exhibition openings, the first phase of that signage has gone up, and I think it looks fabulous. We've had good feedback on it, and I'm looking forward to the last two signs which you approved at the last council meeting. Other things that we've been doing, we've implemented a brand standards package. Part of the look and feel that you've been seeing from Gallery 2 over the past year is the result of that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we did finalize our revised lease agreement with the city, which had been in the works for a while. It's more just a tidying up of things, but these things take time, and it was great to get that taken care of. Moving forward into our coming year, by far and away the biggest change is Wendy Butterfield, who you all know, is retiring. She's been with the gallery literally since it began, and this is a huge change for us. We are looking to celebrate with Wendy. There's a public open house on this Saturday. Wendy's last day is Friday. So we're having an open house on March 16th from 2:30 till 4. Hoping to see as many people there as possible. We've got cake and speeches at 3. It's really a great opportunity for Wendy to move on, and she's leaving the organization in great shape, and we look forward to bringing it forward in her spirit. I'm also really pleased to announce that Bronwyn Bird has agreed to join our team as administrator and registrar. We've taken this opportunity to look at job descriptions and how we're doing things. Heather Canal, who's with our visitor services team, is going to take the lead on the gift shop so that Bronwyn can focus more on the admin and registrar and sort of more of our core gallery functions. Some of the other highlights coming up in the year is our exterior lighting project. We're looking to roll out this spring, which we were able to leverage funding from the Phoenix Foundation for signage to increase a project from a $10,000 signage project to almost $40,000 in exterior upgrades to a civic building. We're also updating our website as a part of mainly for mobile responsiveness and legibility. It's been about 10 years, which is long overdue for a website update. Looking forward to that. We've also, with the board, we're undertaking a policy review. These things, last year was strategic planning, which everybody kind of rolls their eyes at, but it was a really positive experience. I look forward to bringing the Gallery 2 policies to make them relevant going forward and be a real document that we can rely on for guiding our day-to-day operations. And then, of course, our fabulous exhibitions and great events. We're looking forward to a great exhibition year. We've got some really interesting, engaging, and thought-provoking exhibitions, and a real range of events that we'll be bringing forward. So we've enjoyed great support from council and the whole community in the past year, and we look forward to bringing that forward for 2019-2020. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Councillor Corley.
Congratulations on a successful year, and that your continuing support of the community is it's just great. Thank you. And congratulations, Bronwyn.
Thank you.
Other questions? From council, from the gallery? You're looking good out there, Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Teresa, thank you very much, although Tim kind of eclipsed the situation. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see you all on Saturday.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. And moving on to the third presentation, Boundary Museum Society. Bronwyn's many hats.
I know, before I put on my new hat, I'm wearing my old one. And I hope you're all feeling better than I am, sorry. I'm
Good morning. Identifying yourselves for the minutes.
So, morning, Mayor Council, I'm Bronwyn Bird. I'm currently the Collections Management Coordinator at the Boundary Museum, and I'm here with Lee DeHasa, who's our president of our board. So, I'm just here to do just a very quick, this is going to be a short little update about what's been going on at the museum in the last few months since we last came. I think it was in November or December. Oh, right, I have the clicker. There we go. So we've had some relatively low attendance from December to today, which is expected during the winter months. But it's been a great opportunity for us office staff to do some projects and do some work that we may not otherwise have the time to do during the summer when it's really, really busy. Although we've had a few events in the last few months, in December we had our volunteer luncheon before we closed down for a few weeks. We have Sam Semenoff there. He was our volunteer of the year. We're very, very fortunate at the museum to have some really hardworking volunteers. He's also on our board. Just this past month, we had a little family day event. We have a high school student who works with us every Friday, and she put together this family day event. She created a little exhibit detailing some historical families in Grand Forks and the Boundary, and we invited families to come up and to contribute to a little family day exhibit. You can see a little picture there. We had them draw their families, and it was a really fun day. In May, we're going to be having our AGM, and we're planning on having a spring fling event to mark in spring when it finally arrives. And we already have several weddings and facility bookings for this year, so we're anticipating another busy year in regards to events. To help keep the spirit alive during the winter months, we've been putting on a couple contests. So during winter time, we had a reindeer contest. I think we spoke about it last time. We were hiding a little reindeer throughout the museum and encouraging people to come and find it when they came to visit and then put their name into a draw. And the Spa family that you can see here, they were the winners, and we were very happy that they won because they come up about once a month. Their children are homeschooled. So they come up to the museum quite frequently, so it was very fitting that they were the winners. And we now have a new contest where people have to search for our newest employee, Sunny. Sunny hides throughout the museum, and we encourage families and children to find him and then put their name into a basket for a monthly draw. One of the things that we've been doing during the winter months, since it's a little bit quieter, is that we've been working on some new exhibits. So the first one is an exhibit that's being coordinated by our researcher, Joan Hart. It's regarding the 2009 Sinai-Duke-Kapor Reconciliation Project. So it's a really exciting exhibit. It's, there's an audio-visual interactive component. Joan, she did some interviews with people who were key players in this reconciliation event, in which back in the early 1900s, when the Duke-Kapors came to the Grand Forks, or this was actually in Brilliant, sorry, they had purchased a great swath of land, and they moved in not realizing that one area near Castlegar was actually occupied by a Sinaiacs family, and so the Duke-Kapors displaced them. And so this event was, in 2009, was with this beautiful stone. They marked that area where the Christian family, that was the Sinaiacs family, where they had been pushed out, and so J.J. Berrigan in 2009 apologized on behalf of the Duke of Wars to the Sinaiaks people and to the descendants of that family. So it's a really wonderful exhibit that is going to be, we're having an opening on March 29th, which I believe is a Friday, from 1 to 3, and so we encourage everyone to come and see that opening. We're going to have some refreshments, and we're hoping to have some of those key players come and speak. One thing that I've been spearheading is updating our Duke of War Room exhibit. So you see a little picture there. That's how it looked before. It doesn't look like that right now. Right now it's a bit of a construction zone because I've emptied it out and I've been repainting. So it's we're updating the colors with a nice light gray, blues and yellows. I've been working on some really designing some beautiful display panels which tell the history of the Duke of Wars from their origins in Russia up until today. So it does not look like that at all, and it's very much a construction zone, like I said. So in a few weeks, I encourage everyone to come up and see what it looks like. Come up on the 29th to see both exhibits. Down at the archives, Sue has been working very hard on a project with the Downtown Business Association. They're working on a historical signage project. I went to visit her last week, and the table is full of research materials, so she's working very, very hard on that signage project, and I look forward to seeing what it looks like when it's complete. And then the last bit of news is regarding our 40 by 60 building addition. So we're continuing to work hard on that. It's going to be housing the antique fire trucks. The project, or that construction, has been on a bit of a hold with winter and with the snow, but now that spring is hopefully coming, the volunteer Grand Forks Fire Department is going to be assisting us with the construction part of that, getting the walls up and the trusses, and hopefully, and then by the summer, hopefully we'll have that fire trucks will start rolling in, including the one that you see in the photograph there, which is beautiful. It's that beautiful red one that used to be in Jarrow Park. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Questions from council? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, that was an excellent report. And I'm sure the gallery too is thrilled to have you coming on board. But I also know, and where I'm still involved with the museum, you're going to be very missed up there. So, but this was an excellent report. I think the museum has come a long, long way in the years since they were removed from their previous location. So, good on you and the board.
Yes,
Thank you.
Further. Councilor Carlick.
Just one quick comment. I'm happy to be your liaison between the
Oh,
museum
good.
and us.
Thank you. Yes.
So I look forward to seeing what's going on.
You also get a lot of support from the Woodworkers Guild
Yes, we do.
doing renovate or fix-ups of things. I'd just like to congratulate them on continuing to support you. And
Yeah, so far they've done, how many buggies?
Oh God, so many.
7, I think 7 buggies. They just completed the ones we got from the Berrigan family.
yeah,
And so we're really looking forward to getting them out on the floor. We're keeping that back because we want to finish the other one for the fire trucks first. And
yeah. There's
so-
an endless amount of things that they could do for you. I know you
Yes.
have, as your success grows with special events there, you have parking problems.
I know, we
We
do
have a
parking down
big,
Reservoir.
huge parking lot, but when we have events like that, it's up and
It's
down.
crazy.
the road.
I know. The
Yeah.
fall event there, the fall, what do they call it?
The fall,
Oh, the
the
fair.
Harvest Fest?
Yeah, the
Harvest Fest.
Harvest Fest is
Yeah.
extremely,
We see our parking problem as a positive.
Yeah, if people could park
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
If you
I know,
have
right?
lots of cars in, that means you'd have to put lines down, and that means you'd have to do it.
well, it's a small price to pay for your success, so
Exactly.
congratulations on everything that's going on. on up there. It's really turning out to be a real jewel of the community.
Yeah, and I still intend to stay as a volunteer. They can't get rid of me that quickly.
No, and when you leave one group, they keep a bit of you.
Yeah, right.
Well, we've really come a long way in the last year since she's been here, so she knows what she's doing, and we're really gonna be really sad to see her go. We're gonna miss her a lot.
Councillor Crog.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, one last question then?
Oh, no, not a question for you, just an overall comment of how fabulous the museum is and how fabulous the gallery is doing, and what an awesome decision the previous mayor made in shutting down the old building and moving the people. So now we're way better off, so I just told you so, just saying.
All right,
Thank you very much,
so
ladies.
All right, and we didn't still
I didn't mention names or positions.
Area D, topics for discussion. I want to tell people that there's been an incident at the curling rink. The equipment is down. They're going to look like they're going to miss a couple of weeks of their curling time at this point. So there's attention being given to it. There may be some cost implications for the regional district and the city. But that was an unexpected event at the regional level. And the next item is a presentation from staff. And the first item on that list is council workshops. Can I open this for discussion? You've read the list of some of the things that our corporate officer has brought forward as items that have been brought up. I personally know that the one I think is certainly at the top of our agenda is strategic planning. But I'll open that for discussion and welcome Daniel. Councillor Thompson.
I think they've listed 8, and I think I would like to participate in all of them except the GIS and mapping technology, because that's not my area of expertise at all. But I think all of the other ones are certainly something that, not intending to put more burden on our management team, but I think they would be very useful for all of council to participate in, have the ability to ask questions and become more informed, so that when we're talking about bylaws or other things that we have to deal with, we will have a better understanding of what the issues are.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe it would be fantastic for council to participate in all these workshops. My problem is I'm trying to sort out when the staff has time and what we should be focusing on right away. I've heard the strategic planning one come up numerous times, so that's on my top of my priority list as well. Each of these workshops will take a minimum of 40 hours of staff time to just get it together, right? So I'm just trying to prioritize where staff time should be spent, what's urgent in council's opinion. One of mine that I need to get done with council is the Sustainable Service Assessment Tool, the SSAT, because we're coming back to the annual report time. So staff has already done their scoring. I'm hoping to maybe slide that one in on April 8th. We're hoping to have a flooding readiness workshop, I think, on that day, or preparedness workshop, if I remember this right. Urban Systems may be coming to that day anyways, and Scott and Urban helped us create the SSAT tool. So it would be good for the new members of council that weren't around last year to have that workshop to understand what that tool is all about, so that scoring can happen. But the other ones are flexible. So where's council's priority? I've heard this, the strategic planning is important. One that came up last week, of course, was a housing workshop, maybe, that I didn't have on the report because that came up after I sent the report in. So it didn't make it onto the agenda, but it would be number 9 on that list.
So the SSAT,
Yep.
can you give us a one paragraph explanation for public consumption? What is that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a tool that we started last year. The city actually won an award for that, and it helps us gauge how our services are operating. So are we good? How is our fire protection service? How is our water service? What's our sewer system like? So there's some staff scoring that happens, there's some finance scoring that happens, and then there's a governance score that happens, and it calculates some numbers and it shows a trend over years of how the city is doing in delivering those services.
Good explanation. Further comment on this, Council? Councilor Thompson?
I wasn't trying to place a big burden of 40 hours times 8 or 9 on our management team. But what I would like, I agree with your priorities on the sustainable plan, the OCP and the sustainable service assessment tool, I think, or two. But the others throughout, and when you have time off the side of your desk to prepare something, to let us know what you've prepared and we can set something up.
And thank you. That would be fantastic, right? So if staff can focus on these 2 first, and then as the year progresses, we would then bring up more workshops. Because of course which one was the other one? The engineering workshop maybe to discuss land use or so could fall hand in hand with something when Scott is in town, right? And I would have the development and engineering manager at that point maybe have something ready. We don't want to overload council either, right? It's maybe better to space it out a bit, like every month one, but that would get us to Christmas probably before we're through those 8 workshops, 8 or 9 workshops. So just so council's aware, we just can't do them all at once. I would love to, but it's just not possible.
But the OCP certainly relates to something we're facing now, which is social enterprise and where it goes. Councillor?
Yeah, and as far as timing wise, I think whether you want to put it under the planning or the engineering workshop, but we've got to find places for people to develop. We've got to make sure we have land serviced, and I think that's the time crunch right now as far as replacing these houses. So I'm hoping that comes soon. The one I'm really looking forward to is the GIS and mapping technology. I'm hoping you'll be able to take us from an asset that gets depreciated, written off the books, replaced, how that fits into our financial plan, into our depreciation amounts, and how we get that thing sort of replaced. So I'm hoping we get from A to Z on that part of it.
Yeah, and I don't know the details on that, what we can work the workshop around and what's currently there. But yes, the idea was to show council the technologies that's being used, and also maybe help out with showing council how to use the GIS tool that we've made available, and where we've come from in the last 3-4 years to where we're now and where we're hoping to go in the future with these tools to get exactly that outcome.
Councillor Moslin?
Yes, thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Daniel. First, I want to thank staff for the progress they have made on GIS and mapping technology. I'm a real map head, and I have really appreciated it. There's been major improvements that have been made available to staff and to council. So on any device, on any screen, you can have a perfect zoning map, or land use map, or a parcel map. And the regional district has also made significant improvements to their online mapping technology. But for me, I guess if I was to say strategic planning must be a priority. I have to be honest and say that I know that we were supposed to just use last year's as we went through the budget process, the budget planning process. The trouble is it's not every year that your community is almost wiped out by a natural disaster. So I'm trying to recoup and think ahead and to the strategic choices we're going to have to make in the near future. I would certainly like to see that at the top of the list. After that, maybe engineering. I have been trying to figure out everything from the business bylaw to development permit areas to, definitions of different zones. So somewhere in the works, something to do with planning and development. Those bylaws that sometimes bind us. Anyhow, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Daniel.
Further comments from the gallery? Any questions? Daniel, have you got enough here for going ahead with this? You've got some opinions?
It'll get us started.
Okay.
It'll get us through the summer.
Thank you very much. The next item of business is a development permit 1906, and this has to do with the self-illuminated roof signage on the building on 5th Street? 4th Street? 5th Street? 4th Street, yeah. Come on. And I think we're going to have some comment on this from planning. Well, indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we have in front of us is a development permit application for signage. And the reason for this is it's in the Heritage Downtown Development Permit area. And there is a sentence in there that says that a development permit is required when replacing an existing sign or canopy where the size and design of the replacement sign or canopy are generally not consistent with the sign or canopy being replaced. As we do not have a signed bylaw for the downtown core, we brought this to council to have a look, and we felt that the signage was different enough from the signage that was there existing that it should come to council for decision. So Wendy's put together a little presentation. We had hoped to be through the development permit portion of the OCP last year, but the flooding put that on hold. So we just put together a little bit of a presentation on the Heritage Development Permit area and kind of where we're at with heritage in the community and where we came from. So I'll hand it over to Wendy, and then we can have some questions after.
Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'll just give you a bit of framework, I guess, in context of how we might evaluate signs and any kind of proposal in the historic downtown center. Okay, I've done a little PowerPoint. Yeah, I'll give you some background on how we've managed heritage resources in the city, some existing policy and guidelines that we use to evaluate proposals, some specific policies that we have in place right now for signs, and just a quick table on the pros and cons of the application before you right now, and some options moving forward. So to begin, I guess the major push for heritage conservation began in 1985 when there was a pretty significant heritage survey of the entire city and region undertaken. And I believe you have a copy of the report. It's on our website. It reviews all the different buildings in the area and their significance. Then between 92 and 2003, there were 5 properties designated by bylaw as heritage properties in the city. 2 of those have been canceled. Of course, it's City Hall, the gallery, and the Pearly School Annex remain heritage designated buildings. In jump to 2011, there was another focus on heritage. There was a large workshop hosted. A review committee was established. They created a heritage program plan document for the city, which I do believe you also had a copy of that. And that informed the OCP guidelines that are currently in place. And at that time also a Heritage Advisory Design Panel bylaw was established, but an actual panel was never enacted. In 2013 and 14, A number of downtown beautifications like the planters, the crosswalks started, emanating out of heritage planning initiatives. Then in late 2018, you've probably noticed there's a number of heritage wooden signs around downtown. That was done with a grant from the BC Museums Association in consultation with the Downtown Business Association. And then, as you also know, recently the Art Gallery has initiated a signage program and lighting to enhance that heritage building. Okay, and we do have policies in place in the OCP. They're very general, just basically to protect and enhance the heritage values of the community, with emphasis on the city center. There are guidelines. This particular site on 4th Street is in the historic downtown development permit area. And there's a number of very general policies about protecting heritage buildings. At the same time, recognizing that there's unique different eras of architecture in the downtown core, and that signage perhaps would relate to the architectural style existing on the building. We do have a statement of significance for downtown, just, I guess, articulating the community's vision for a historic downtown. And then again in about 2009, I think it was, Imagine Grand Forks was undertaken in the community, which also refers and has some proposals incorporating new heritage styles into the downtown. Specific policy, I'll just, like I said, they're very general, protect the values, promote heritage in the city center outward. Okay, the development permit area, again, very broad. Historic signs should be maintained. Lighting should be permanent. Very general. There is a policy around avoiding light pollution from new lighting in the downtown. And we'll move on to, just quickly prepared this list for your considerations. Some of the pros and cons, it's not exhaustive, about pertaining to the signage proposal for the Dollarama. On the positive side, of course, it facilitates a recognizable new downtown business, which is important, and it emphasizes the company's distinct branding. I'm sure we all know Dollarama. The prominence of the signs proposed may draw traffic and pedestrians into the downtown, which otherwise may not go. And obviously the existing building is 1960 vintage, and a heritage style signage may not be appropriate, maybe more of a 60s style might be, however that's defined. Okay, some of the perhaps disbenefits are that the large lighted signs, and you have photos in your report of how it might look, may overpower the streetscape. There is a clear articulated desire in the community for promoting and revitalizing the heritage identity of the downtown. And these signs may not be consistent with that vision. There is the opportunity to reduce the potential for glare, and they're quite large letters on the facade sign. There might be an opportunity for us to revisit that with the developer. And approving such signs may set a precedent in the future for sign applications. And I guess it could be said the size and the intensities may not be considered to be consistent with the pedestrian atmosphere in the downtown. Okay. Now just some implications and options for council. Again, there's no real clear policies or guidelines respecting signs in the downtown, or actually anywhere in the city. And signs are considered to be critical to create identity in the community, for wayfinding. And most cities actually regulate signs through a sign bylaw. We don't have one. And just another point, there are examples of Dollarama signs in other areas in other cities. There's 1,800 Dollaramas in Canada, so some are low key, some are very high key. So. Now some options, there may be others, but you could recommend approval, and if that occurs tonight, you could consider officially the development permit for approval. You could recommend approval with some conditions regarding the form and the design of the signs. You could refer the application back to us to work with the applicant. And another option is that you may wish to consider directing us to draft maybe more specific guidelines for signs downtown and to draft a sign bylaw. And that's it, if there's any questions.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Krog had his hand up first, and then we'll go back to Amber. Councillor Krog.
I have pictures. How come? Can we show pictures? Oh, there you go. And then you see the bargain shop.
Amber.
We would like, as the Downtown Business Association,
Can
for
you
this.
speak up a bit?
Sorry. Amber Stavloff, Downtown Business Association. We would like council to consider a sign bylaw so that future signs and our downtown has a consistent feel. So we'd like for you to consider that option.
Do you have a position on this particular sign?
I don't have a position on this particular sign. We have a look that we would like for downtown.
For
As
the
well,
downtown court, not
Yeah.
necessarily for that.
as well as through the Rural Dividend Grant. We'll be engaging with a downtown revitalization specialist to consider the look that we wish to have for downtown. So I think it would be in council's best interest to consider a sign bylaw so that all development downtown is consistent moving forward.
Right, thank you. And Councillor Zelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to staff. Because I think in Dolores, one of your presentations, you mentioned the sign bylaw. It's been on the books for a while. Any comments? Because with the list of our capital projects and everything else on that we have to do this year, I don't see that happening. So correct me if I'm wrong, please.
I did start a sign bylaw about 4 years ago, but it was declined by, I don't know if it was previous councillor or if we just ran, I don't know what happened, but I did start one, so I did have a few really good examples and had a fairly extensive sign bylaw that was done up, but I think the CEO at the time thought it was a bit too much, so I think maybe we could have a workshop. Maybe this is one of the things we could do a workshop on, because there's a development permit area, and maybe we could discuss how the OCP would come into play with drafting up a sign bylaw such as this, and maybe we could work through it and maybe get a feel for how council, how prescriptive you'd like to be with the sign bylaw, or whether or not you'd like these decisions to be made kind of one-off, one at a time, maybe come up with some looser guidelines. So it's maybe something that we could do a workshop on later.
I'm hearing some frustration with the vagueness of the rules that you have to apply at this point.
Yeah, it leaves it up to council to make the decisions.
Councillor Krog, then Councillor Thompson.
Just a follow-up. I was also told at some point in time we had a form of character for downtown. Do we know when we're going to see that proposal, or it would come at the same time?
The previous work that's been done on the heritage, there's actually quite a bit of information there. I think it just a matter of pulling that information together. So it would be a magic round of works, and it would be the Dobson reports, and it would be pulling those together, and I think maybe putting those into a single document that would maybe be our heritage guidelines. The bylaw could be fairly small and compact, and then the actual guidelines would be where we would spend a bit more of our time, I think.
But very much interrelated. Councillor Thompson and then Krog, or do?
Yeah. My concern with that signage is the size of it and that it's lighted. And I don't think I would like to see it go back to the developer. I didn't realize that there were choices in the size of the signage. Something smaller and less garish. that would complement the rest of the business community.
Councillor Krog and then Loslin. Oh, sorry, you want to answer that? Yes.
We have been working with the owner and with Dollarama, and we did kind of say to them, if you do it basically the same as what the bargain store was and keep it that way, then you don't need a development permit because it's generally the same. And they decided that they did not want to do that, that they wanted to come forward with this, which is their typical design. And they did, the letters initially were 48 inches tall, and they reduced those to 42, or is it 39? I can't remember. They did reduce the size, but they're still fairly large. So yeah, we did try to work with them on that, and we did tell them it was in our Heritage Downtown core. We asked them if they had any branding that was, developed for Heritage Downtowns, and they didn't. And so they wanted to come forward with this, there's basically their standard design, and they reduced the size of the letters a little bit for us.
Go ahead.
I thought I read on the screen that there was alternative lighting that's not quite so in your face.
Yeah, and we did recommend that. So right now what the bargain store has, I don't know if you can go down to the bargain store and get the picture. They have that, I think it's called a light bar that shines down on, and so we discussed a light bar with them, we discussed alternate types of lighting, and they really do want to go with their standard lighting, so that's why they wanted to move forward with the development permit.
Councillor Krog and then Moslin.
Yeah, similar to Councillor Thompson, I would like to see the staff go back, talk to them again, and say, yeah, we need it smaller. So if it's down to 36 or whatever. And also that we pick up the sign bylaw that was started and continue on with that. So that's what I'd like to. Oh, or neon. I'll go neon.
Councillor Moslin.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have any reservations about the sign, one way or the other. It is a national brand. It is a popular store. We do need to attract people to that mall. Just a couple other comments, so Mayor. First off, this council did make a recommendation to staff to explore the definitions in our zoning bylaw. Commercial was one that's really killing us. Another definition that isn't in our zoning bylaw is supportive housing. That's killing us too. So, way down on my priority list is signage when it comes to new bylaws, because I'm still trying to cope with the definitions in our existing bylaws. The other thing I have to say, Mayor, so I guess, is the motion that we're being asked to consider. I'm having a terrible time with the wording of the motion. The committee of the whole considers whether to recommend that council approves. Well, how do we do that? I'm still trying to figure out. It would perhaps, this might be just to the clerk, I'm not too sure who penned this motion, that just simply put that the committee of the whole recommends that council approves or recommends that council consider. Anyhow, we're sort of making a motion for us to consider, and I find it kind of
redundant.
Wordy and redundant, and I have a hard time trying to figure out what we're supposed to decide. Anyhow, Mayor, I do speak in favor of the sign. I do have one reservation about the blank walls. There are blank walls on that building, and monolithic structures are supposed to be avoided within our community. And in the past, if we can, in that that's on the wall facing south, there was some lovely portraits, historic portraits, which I think have been removed, right? And I'd love to see them replaced, especially if we're going to start the DVAs moving forward with their historic signage project, that perhaps a developer could consider that southern wall being space for some of the historic portraits that in the past have adorned it. And that way we would avoid the monolithic wall thing. Anyhow, so that's my comments, Mayor. Thank
You
you.
can see trading off a larger sign for more heritage look on the south side.
That was my thinking, Mayor.
Glenn?
Thank you, Mayor. I think there is a mural on the south
Yeah.
side still. Pretty sure. I think this might be some old
Yeah.
footage from Google
Because
Earth. I
there's
think the mural
Two on
actually
this
is there.
side, and then all the other ones. on the-
Yeah, and my understanding is that the owners, I believe he said that they were planning on keeping the murals. So if they're not, then I guess we could put that in and have a
So that
discussion.
would be my concern, that there be mural space on the wall.
I believe they did say that they would keep the murals, and the reason that we put for council to consider the recommendation is that because we don't have any clear definitions for signs in the bylaw, I didn't feel right making a recommendation to approve this development permit. So I felt that it was up to council to discuss and decide whether or not they would, to consider whether or not they wanted to approve it and move forward with the approval at tonight's meeting.
Councillor Zelinski, and then we'll go to Amber.
So this is probably more for my counselors than anything else, but I just want to confirm, I see the word bargain there, and the size of those letters as opposed to Dollarama, they look very similar in size, is that correct?
I think so.
Okay, and then my question to my colleagues, is it the size of the sign or is it the brightness of the sign?
It's a 1965 historical building.
Is it a historical location?
It's the lighting.
It's lighting.
Yeah.
But, because I guess what I would suggest is it's very easy to tell the developer, as far as lumens or the light coming off,
Yeah.
you only get to this much and it might avoid that, but the size I
I
don't
see.
see an issue with, so.
Right, to tone it down a bit. And going into the back,
Just to comment, the murals are still on the building.
they are, yes, okay.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. My name is Nigel James. I'm a member of the Grand Forks. The Barton shop, have they actually moved out and closed down? That's great. And Dollarama have bought it, presumably the building, and or are they renting it?
I believe they bought it and they're,
Okay.
they didn't buy it? No, okay.
It's rented, is it? Okay, well, that's up to the Dollarama to decide with the owners what happens. It's taken us 4 years to get nowhere so far. Not because it's the staff's fault, but because something else has cropped up and so on. I've no doubt Dollarama want to get cracking on this. We have a sign at the entrance to our city saying, we're open for business. You're not encouraging people to do business here by nitpicking and so on. The bargain shop, I can now 10 minutes, I believe, or 5 minutes, I think it is.
I think it's 3, but go.
All right, I carry on with 3 minutes. That sign shows out across 4th Street, and it's an old railway station and a railway track, and it goes out to a car park outside, what was it called? The community, no, the bank, not the bank, what is it called?
Credit union.
Sorry, the
Credit
union, yes. Quite honestly, that sign right now is much larger. I can see it visually, much larger than Dollarama want to do it. It's not duly lit, but Dollarama want to light it. The one at the side, the TB exclamation mark S, that sign is larger than the 1 metre circular one that's planned. Quite honestly, if you want people to come and shop here and do things, you've got to advertise. You can't just hide yourself away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Les, and then we'll go to Kathy Crawford.
Yeah, from Facebook here, Danny Delisle wanted to point out that the heritage things inside the building were repeatedly vandalized, just for your information. So,
I'm sorry, Les.
the heritage images on the side of the building that you were talking about,
Yeah.
they've been repeatedly vandalized, so
Right,
Do you really want them there?
okay. Councillor Corley.
What I've seen, and I paid attention yesterday when I was in Kelowna, the Dollarama stores, they have a very nice sign that would be out on the street with the rest of the list of whoever's in the mall. I just think they need to be a bit smaller, that's all. To me, they were not distasteful at all. It's just, I just think they need to be just a little bit smaller, and maybe not so bright, because we can see them, it's advertised on the highway, and it's not, and people are coming down anyways to get through into town. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. They're usually quite tasteful in what they are. I just think they need to be maybe a little less bright and somewhat smaller.
So I guess I'm asking, do we need a motion on this? Because we are going to have it on tonight's agenda for the regular meeting, and we are going to make a motion on it, Councillor.
Is there any sign in town that's bigger?
What about the Remax or the Grand Works Realty?
Save on.
Just keep in mind, the Save-On store is not in the Heritage Development Permit area, so, and we have to be careful that just because a decision was made in the past to allow a certain type of sign, that doesn't mean that we're gonna do that moving forward, so, yeah, and Save-On is in the Commercial Core Development Permit area, not the Heritage.
My opinion is that, similar to Nigel, we've got to be careful this doesn't discourage success. That's what we're looking for. We're going to be a busy town in the next little while. We've got all the cannabis stores looking at opening. I think we need that sign bylaw. I think we need to give our staff more direction to clarify for the downtown core what that heritage might look like.
Fun, cheap cheesies.
But I'm not sure we need a motion at this point. Do you feel we do?
That,
So, Your Worship, I think
That's it.
what
Go
staff
back
is
number
looking for
3.
is just that council's going to consider this for tonight, and so that's kind of what the recommendation is here, because it is coming to tonight's meeting for a decision.
Okay, confirming that, can we have a motion? We don't need a seconder.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
The illumination of those signs, how many lumens are there? Does it go right out onto the street, or?
Yeah, the picture they showed was on a rainy day, so
yeah, that's not a good picture.
that's not a clear indication of what it might look like.
Oh, no, it's upside down.
So we're trying to find something that's a similar size of the building, similar type of.
Yeah.
Where does it for lumens fit on the right-hand side, Ryan? Does it have anything with the lumens?
Okay, well,
Should be in there.
for the sake of, 1965 was a wonderful year, I want to say that.
10 seconds, Your
Nigel,
Worship.
one
10
more.
seconds. One of the pictures in here, it says Boundary Park Mall. Is that Boundary Park? Or is that somebody's bright idea?
Somebody's bright idea.
Yeah, I think that's just nomenclature.
It might be the car park, perhaps.
Okay, I'm still looking for that motion on the floor here to bring it to tonight's meeting for consideration.
You know, I didn't hear the motion that the CAO recommended, Mayor, but it's something that committee of the whole refers the matter to the regular council meeting. Is
That's
that what
it, perfect. So made. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll deal with that tonight at tonight's meeting. I hope that we've talked out most of the detail of it today, if there's anything lingering here. So we've got a couple of interesting suggestions in terms of toning down the lumens. And I think the offer on the table is for a slightly smaller sign than what the original proponent was asking for. So that is coming to tonight's meeting. I also see that we need a motion to go ahead with the sign bylaw. We're going to have a lot of, I think, solve a lot of problems by getting that on the table. So do we need a motion at the regular meeting tonight, or would you like it here?
Yeah, your worship, likely tonight would be the time to put that motion
Right,
together.
I see that on the list. Okay, so that'll be at tonight's meeting. Okay, are we good? And the next item of business is library renovations. Deputy Manager of Operations, oh, he is here. Hi, Kevin. You're so quiet and unassuming now. Good afternoon, good morning.
So I did try to be in the front row there, but now I'm right at the front.
Okay, you're on.
So there is some potential to, and I'm just going to jump right to the meat of the matter, there's some potential to leverage the funds that are proposed in this year's capital budget for the roof replacement to do a general energy retrofit in the library. And we would like to pursue that, but it requires a little bit of upfront spending to get the engineering reports done. And some of the engineering reports would need to be done in general to consider some of the requests from council in terms of changing the roof structure from flat to peaked. So some of it are things that would serve the dual purpose there. And then there's some additional energy flow or energy usage reporting that would be in there. So basically we would like to spend up to $16,000 now in order to potentially bring in $600,000 in grant funding. And that of course would be a application process and there's no guarantee, but we could then take the $250,000 project and do some more in-depth retrofits to the library and potentially spend, we don't know the costing right now without these reports, but potentially spend up to $800,000 on a renovation project there.
That was the Real Estate Foundation?
No, this is through Clean BC. It's a provincial, federal grant matching.
Questions? Councillor Moslin and Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, just for clarification, Mayor, the line in the first paragraph, including installation of an elevator for accessibility to the basement, well, ka-check, I understand that. But, and the addition of a second floor, help me out. Are you talking about a second floor on top of the existing library, or is the second floor in the basement? You're talking about another story.
Above, yes.
A whole other story.
That was a request from council to look at pricing for that, so that was a request to see whether the footings were large enough or to carry that load.
All right, but this motion would also, I'm thinking of the seniors center. The seniors are interested in that basement of the library for a potential senior center. Would this motion take into those considerations the development of the basement?
So the main engineering reports are looking at the roof structure, as that is the big project we had planned for the library, as well as the energy consumption. So the grant itself is based on energy, not on community use. So it would be focused on the building envelope and the roof structure rather than accessibility to the basement.
Okay, one more. The point here is I'm trying to make is there's 6,000 square feet of civic space down in that basement. I don't want to ignore it any longer. It seems to me it might be more effective to develop something we have than to build something we don't. Anyhow, so I'm certainly in favor of this project of blue sky. Basically, it's blue sky. We're trying to get as much as we can for that building. I just hope that in those studies that we take into consideration future use of the basement.
Correct. I missed it, I guess, that we were looking at a second story there, but am I hearing that the structure itself will support a second floor without?
No, that's what we're trying to find out.
You have, that's one of the engineering questions that you're asking.
Yeah.
That's correct. And so the second story came out of a previous input from council ideas.
I just thought it was for a roof.
I thought it was just for a roof too, but I mean, it's exciting to think we could better use the whole facility by having
If
more.
you're putting a roof on it, it doesn't.
Why not
cost
lift the
much
roof
to
up a little?
go up, then let's check it.
Garden patio. Anyway, okay, well, so we'll be asked to approve that $16,000 initial engineering research on that project. Tonight's meeting?
That would be ideal. The grant schedule is by the end of this month, a few days before the end of this month is when the application is required, including supporting documents. And so there's 3 resolutions in the RFP that I'm sure Daniel will scroll down to momentarily. And one of them is general support for the initial engineering and the grant. And then the third one down there, it is basically reaffirming what's already in the proposed capital
planning
project list for this year, that, you know, the city is planning to spend up to $250,000 of its own money on these energy and roof renovations at the library.
Yeah, I think we've neglected that roof issue for a number of years, and for good reason in some cases. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think it's absolutely excellent that we can potentially leverage that money up to $800,000. With respect to the basement, I thought we had asked for comments from the building inspector and the fire chief with respect to the low ceiling on that. And I know that the seniors are looking at that, but do we have any information back on that from those departments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We were asked by council to look at better utilizing the space and the opportunity to look at different options for that building. So looking at it holistically, seeing if adding a second floor was cost effective, whether the footings were able to support the load of adding a second floor, whether it would make more sense to have them upstairs and have storage downstairs. So we would look at the feasibility of the project through this engineering, and then we would talk to the fire chief and the building inspector to see what kind of logistics needed to be figured out there. It didn't seem like it was an unsurmountable task trying to better utilize the basement, but there's exits and fire separation and a few things that did have to be looked at. But that's why the elevator's included, and whatever would need to be done to make that space legally, I guess, usable, then we would look at that and bring that back to council.
And you're still waiting for an answer on the insurance settlement for the basement damage?
Correct.
So I'm rushing you, and I don't need to do that. So we'll wait till you get the proper report so that we can make a better informed decision.
Councillor Zelinski and then Councillor Corlick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm worried about the money. So what I read here is you're asking for $16,000 to apply for the grant and find out where we go. That $250,000 could be $1 million awful quick, is what I'm hearing. So I didn't see the $250,000 in other documents that we were presented. So I could be wrong, but when I saw the last financials that had $6 million in the bank today, in 5 years' time, we're gonna have 6,000, and we still want to pull another 250 out of there, concerns me. So, as I've mentioned a few times before, I have no problem committing the 16,000 as long as we know where it's coming from. But to find out where we can go to. But as far as committing the 250, I don't even know if that's the number yet, so I really would.
Could we hear on that 250 first?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the 250,000 was included in our financial
So,
plan.
for those that didn't hear it, it is included in this year's financial budget?
Yes, it is. The 16 isn't though, and
Would be early spending?
well, we could, at this point, we could still amend the financial plan because it's just coming to introduction today.
Right.
I could add that 16,000 council.
Decides to do that tonight.
Mr. Mayor. Just as a comment rather than anything, like the 16,000 can come from reserves. I guess what I'm suggesting is 16,000 come from reserve, scratch the 250 right now, don't know what it is, because the money's coming from reserve anyway, so it really doesn't, it's gonna be in the bank anyway until we find out how much we want to spend on the building, so, a comment.
Comment. Further comments, Councillor Corlick and then Councillor Moslin?
For me, I would rather see whatever money we have or get to be leveraged to a permanent fix. Because coming back every few years and saying the roof is leaking, we need to fix it, blah, 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 to me that's just an ongoing cost. Let's do it right and get it done. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Councillor Moslin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank Council for your comments. I kind of agree with Councilor Corlick. I would like, I am committed to, I think this council should show commitment with the $250,000. This is, this is our chip on the table to bring up this well-used piece of community and social infrastructure up to a modern standard. I get the $16,000, my question is the $16,000 going to come out of the 250? Or what?
So the 250 came from a roof report from a couple years ago, and that was just for straight up replacing the flat roof membrane with like for like for the roof. So where the 16,000 comes in is when we're investigating changes. Then in order to get the reports, like the structural one that was mentioned.
But where would the 16,000 come from?
16,000 came from an estimate that we received from an engineering.
But it would come from reserves.
They come from reserves. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zelinski?
That's my only comment, whether it's 250 or whether it's 16, it's coming from reserves regardless, that's my understanding, is that correct?
Would you folks from the library want to chip in anything?
We're waiting. For this part, not really. I just want a roof that doesn't leak, please and thank you.
Okay, so for my question, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
16,000 or 250,000, both coming from reserves, is that correct?
At this point, I'd say yes.
Okay.
The question becomes if we decided not to go ahead with it, then we would probably have to write off that $16,000, so it should maybe come from reserves at that point.
Okay, and the answer there is that it may or may not give rise to spending the 250.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then we're back at planning ahead for another year. Okay, further?
Yes, so we also had a request from the library on a related accessibility issue that I wanted them to, well, they're looking for space for them to speak to. So there's a request, and the piece where we at Outside Works were involved is there's some in-kind work requested, so we'd like to know council's appetite for that, and I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Thank you for giving us a few minutes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name's Mary Kierans. I'm chair of the library board, and I'm pretty new to Grand Forks. Want me to sit? I'm new to Grand Forks, and I am so astounded by the use of this library. As you can see from our advertising that's now amazingly quickly gone out to you, we have over 73,000 people a year come into our library, and we are so delighted to hear you taking seriously these improvements to the building, because even though Carrie made light of it, this constant leaking and worry about the structure of the building, even though we're just the leasers in it, is a huge concern for us. As you know, we were just so lucky to have an accessibility report done by the Rick Hansen Foundation this year, and our staff, in particular Carrie, and our board have worked so hard to improve accessibility, maybe a boring subject, but for washrooms. And we've done huge fundraising. Rick Hansen did an amazing audit of our building, and we were delighted that we're going to be able to go ahead with the project. But the interesting thing with the Rick Hansen thing was he actually did our whole building, which we hadn't expected. We just thought it would be the washrooms. But the guy came in a wheelchair. He was there from early in the morning right through the whole thing. The washrooms were the key thing. But another thing, and this is when I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to give you the details, is he also mentioned the accessibilities from our meeting rooms. And that's what we're here for. We are looking at
another grant to do it, but we're also looking for help from the city. So I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Hi, yeah, so you guys have all heard about our bathroom renovation project. This is last minute because we were focusing very heavily on that because we needed to raise $84,000 for the project. Last week, we got to our fundraising goal.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. We're so excited. We are going forward with an RFP right away. So phase 2 of this project was making the meeting room accessible outside of hours because it's one of the very few rentable community spaces. And our current skeleton key system is not a great system. And part of the renovation includes a fully accessible washroom with a door only to the meeting room area. So we're planning on changing all of the way the locks and key borrowing and stuff is so that people can use that room. So what I'm asking for from council, I've handed out pictures to everyone. I'm looking for in-kind support and permission to make changes to the outside of the building, to build a ramp that I drew in green and stairs coming down with a handle based on recommendations from David Bruce, the building inspector, when he's able to come out. So what I need is for permission to change the outside look of the building, have a different door that's accessible from the outside, because right now that door that I've drawn the ramp from is just an exit door. And for Public Works to do the actual building, and we will be applying for grants for the materials funding. So that's why we're here.
So council, that means that we should probably refer that request back to staff for further detail and feasibility.
The reason that we ended up not waiting until the next meeting and piggybacking on Kevin today is because one of the main grants that we'd like to apply to is for the Phoenix Foundation, and the letter of inquiry closes at the end of this month. So time is of the essence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to chime in that from initial scoping of the project, it doesn't look like a huge amount of work, so it would be reasonable in terms of the time of outside works to put into installing a ramp there.
So you've already considered this involvement with that project? Or are you speaking for the engineering department?
No, I'm speaking for the outside works guys that would be laying the concrete, and it would be a reasonable, it's only got about a 4-inch rise to the threshold of the door on the back, so from a strictly on the ground perspective, it does look reasonable to pursue.
Okay, can we have a motion for that withdrawal? We don't need a seconder. So the motion is that we have the staff take a serious look at that. Kevin saying it's very practical.
Well, no, I think the resolution that I want to make is that we authorize staff to proceed with the changes.
Okay, I'm getting a nod that we don't need to do feasibility if they're ready to do it. Okay, so Councillor Thompson's motion is that we go ahead with that
Thank you so much.
project.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the, when it's referred to tonight, with the understanding that if something weird happens and the cost goes way mental, that it comes back.
I would expect that they would bring that.
I'm sure staff will make the appropriate resolution.
And just may I clarify, we are only looking for the staff time. We're looking for permission because our lease requires us to ask for any changes to the outside. And does the staff time actually build it? The materials, we'll find the money.
Okay, and you know, I was at their AGM. Amazing, healthy organization. They're doing really well. And congratulations on successfully raising that much money. Councillor Mon.
Mayor, I speak in favor of the motion. I just want to point out that if we get what we want, we'll probably be ripping it up.
Oh, what?
Right? That whole wall will change. I mean, if we start adding a second story to that building, there'll be significant changes anyways. You know, as a temporary fix, I support the motion.
Okay, and we forgot to vote on that. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. Excellent job. And we are down to the monthly department managers' reports. And can I have questions or introduction of anything? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to draw your eyes to the line painting section of the outside works report. Just to make a couple notes on it, we did go through and did a preliminary assessment of our pavement marking, and there may be some noticeable changes this year, just in terms of some of the stop lines and crosswalks in more of the neighborhood areas that aren't to spec, as it were, or that we don't necessarily need to do every year. So there's been an effort made at bringing things into line with some of the provincial standards, as well as some cost savings in pavement marking, as well as we are looking at having a full review done by ICBC, so that we will have the backup for future changes, and we'll know according to their safety standards where things should be at in terms of lines and signs.
Right, I think that's going to look at stop signs and yield signs and things that will work better for us in the whole community.
That's right.
Excellent. Further questions on manager's report? Oh, yeah, Kate?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Not on behalf of the Gazette, but just a big thank you to the fire department. They've noted here that they did a fire hall tour for my actually Grow Guide group. And I just wanted to publicly recognize that they had 67 volunteer members out, toured the 6 and 7-year-olds through the fire hall, let them try on the equipment, and it was like a really, really great experience for the girls, and just because it's the city fire department, they loved it, and a big thank you to the members.
Well, thank you very much to the fire department. Yeah. Councillor Zelensky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anybody here willing to talk to building inspections?
Well, not talking to it, but Mr. Bruce emailed in this morning. He is sick at home in bed, so.
I was just wondering about the one house demolition and one residential flood damage repair. First of all, on flood damage repair, does our 200-year floodplain come into effect? Was this? No. Okay. Residential demolition, how many houses have been demolished due to the flood? Does anybody know?
I'm going to have that. There were a number stated in a previous report. I don't know whether they've gone ahead with it or not.
So, Mr.
Two
Mayor.
in my neighborhood.
Two?
In my neighborhood, right.
Very close by?
Yeah. Are gone.
Can we get you that information?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll just send an email through the CAO.
Right. So it's in process. There's a number of things being looked at there, including some of those homes that are beyond repair. And so I know that that's one of the items that will be coming up. But we'll find out the details of it for you. Further comments or input on the monthly report? Councilor Moslin?
I do have a couple of questions here about the whole report. I assume we were going to go all. I do want to note with some sadness that they're still trying to get the permits to start the restoration work on McCray Creek. Is that the case? So no work is actually started on McCray Creek? It's no side of the city, I'm sorry,
Right.
but.
They were hopeful today, but I haven't heard.
I assume these are the same signs of blockages that you had with the armoring of the bank in South Rockwell.
Yes.
A little bit different, but
the same red tape.
They had some engineering pieces, concerns, I guess, so they were re-engineering, and they were waiting for that to come through to get those approvals because the work has changed, so.
Right. Okay, further, Councilor?
Yes, now down to current planning. I want to comment briefly on a completed consolidation for convenience of the zoning bylaw. I wish to thank staff for that, and to point out to anybody who wants to go to the city's website and download the zoning bylaw. It's now very well linked, so you don't have to read all gazillion pages of it to find what you want. It's very nicely done, thank you. I do note the line, ongoing pre-application coordination for BC housing initiatives. I'm going gulp. What's that mean? What is ongoing pre-application coordination for BC housing?
All right.
It's just when we get phone calls and discussions that are verbal, nothing is written yet, so it's just the ongoing discussions. That they call and ask questions or we clarify things for them.
So there is communication going on between staff and BC Housing about both their initiatives.
Actually, just the only thing that we've been having discussions about recently is the 19th Street, which is what they're focusing on.
Okay.
Okay, it was about 19th Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Thompson?
Do we even know what their proposal for Second Street is, or is that just kind of back off the table for the moment?
I don't know. I believe you probably had more discussions with the.
So there's no new news on
No,
that?
there's nothing.
There's nothing new on Second Street? Thank you. And Councillor Zelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An update on Tim Hortons, please.
They're still moving forward with it. They ran, there's some pricing issues and where there was a lot of strain on the construction companies in BC last year because the province dumped that $500 million out there all in 1 year. And, we were lucky enough to get a chunk of that in the last couple of years. So it put a lot of strain on the construction companies. And so they're really busy and it's difficult for them to get somebody into this area, but they're still moving forward with, I believe they put out for tender and they're still working on it.
So they're shopping for the contractor. Further on staff reports.
Just an update from Emergency Services, and this email just came in from EMBC. This is just an update on the snowpack. And as of March 1st, they're calculated monthly, the boundary snowpack is sitting at 68% of normal for this time of year.
Good news.
There are 5 snowpacks in the province that are at or above normal. Everything else at this point is below.
All right.
Kevin, do you know offhand what we were at last year at this time?
This time last year, we were I could call
40%.
I was going to say in the 140, 150 range. By April, we were at about 200%.
Thank you.
Okay. Amber?
In 2017, though, we were at 59% at this time of the year.
I'm sorry, at what percent?
At 59%.
59% in 17, and we still had a flood. So yeah, not to get too complacent.
Not at all.
Absolutely. Further, Councillor Moslin.
Okay, yes, your worship, the business licenses. Oh my goodness. Continued review of the business license bylaw. Okay, I guess that's we're confronted with the whispers of hope proposal, which somehow falls outside of our business license bylaw. I understand, because they're not a business. Have I got that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, our current business license bylaw does not consider nonprofits. It's very distinct in that it says it has to be for profit or gain. So technically, a nonprofit does not require a business license. They have been coming and applying for business licenses and going through the process for inspections for fire and such, but our bylaw does not require them at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we got a group here. Councillor.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, it sounds like that's going to play into our commercial definition.
Which we don't have.
Yeah.
Councillor Crog.
Yeah, a couple of things. I know somebody mentioned commercial in conjunction with that and the fact that they weren't actually doing business. So then somewhere in a letter or something, I saw that they were then going to sell food to meet that commercial definition. But then that kicks them back into business license things. Okay.
So the business license bylaw, it has to be a commercial or industrial operation and for gain or profit. So this could be a commercial operation, but if it's not for gain or profit, it still doesn't require a business license. That's the way it's currently worded. And the definition of a restaurant is quite loose as well. It just says the preparation of food that is sold. It doesn't say that all the food has to be sold. It doesn't say, so our definition for restaurant is also fairly loose.
Councillor Moslin?
My point there is that if we're reviewing the business bylaw, that maybe we should be reviewing that as well. That we look to further rid ourselves of ambiguity about what is a business and who qualifies to be a business. Because that is haunting us there, or that site, but it's also haunting us at 2nd Street. When we talk about a building in the commercial core that doesn't have any commercial space. Anyhow, that would be my comment, Mayor, is that, well, let's look at that business license bylaw. Yeah, it looks really old to me. And let's update it if we have to for cannabis. But I really think we need to start taking a look at where do government-sponsored or
social
enterprises, how do they fit into our business in our downtown core?
And
let's
the OCP.
Get at the root. Let's go at the definition.
Right, and you know, you've talked about some initiatives in that area at this point using a committee structure. Are you wanting to?
Well, I'm going to comment on that when we get to that in the regular meeting, Mayor.
I don't want to blow your cover for tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Ma'am?
My name is Stephanie Pruitt, and I am a registered social worker in private practice in Grand Forks. I'm speaking for the citizens for a better Grand Forks. Would like to address the issue of the Whispers of Hope proposed location. Is this an acceptable time?
Yes. Can you speak up a bit?
Sure.
Or you could go to the mic.
Oh, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm speaking before you today on behalf of Citizens for Better Grand Forks. We started as a relatively small group of people concerned about the Whispers of Hope's plans to open a community soup kitchen in the downtown area. However, as word is spread, our very small group has now grown to encompass concerned citizens from throughout the entire community. Our group is concerned about the location of the kitchen in the downtown area and the impacts of that on the ability of Whispers of Hope to effectively manage the operation and to take responsibility for any problems that may arise. The presence of the drug and criminal element, whose use of the facility may facilitate further drug deals and criminal activity, is another concern, as well as the increasing polarization and volatility taking place in our town over this and similar issues. As a result of the latter, Citizens for the Betterment of Grand Forks has made it a policy not to engage or respond on social media or elsewhere to any assumptions or accusations made against our group. Nor will we put any person in an unsafe confrontational situation. As a group, we are committed to open, honest, and respectful dialogue with all persons. While we're in support of measures being taken in order to identify whether there is a legitimate need for community/soup kitchen, we do not believe that the downtown area is the appropriate business location. We are concerned about the safety and security of residents and downtown business owners, employees, as well as consumers. We are particularly concerned about the safety of our children using the park facilities, especially the water park and playground, which is in close proximity. We believe we should be doing everything possible to support the continued recovery of our downtown businesses already devastated by the flood. We want to take actions that support economic revitalization, including tourism revenues. In terms of whether there is a legitimate need for a community soup kitchen, it would be helpful to know the exact numbers and demographics of those in need. We believe that Whispers of Hope and the Warming Shelter may have collected these numbers. At this point, Council will have already received letters from private citizens addressing their concerns for persons and properties in the downtown area because of the kitchen's proposed location. Citizens for a Better Grand Forks would like to convey that we are opposed not only to the Fifth Street location, but again, any location in the downtown area. In terms of current zoning bylaws, it is our understanding that they do not specifically deal with zoning for a soup or community kitchen run by a nonprofit organization. Therefore, we kindly ask Council to take the following actions. Requesting staff to prepare a report on the specific zoning of soup and/or community kitchens and shelters. Amend the zoning bylaws to be more specific in the definition of core commercial for restaurant, so that it would be clear that this means only for-profit establishments operating in the downtown area. Allow for input from community group yet to be established. That would include representation and participation from council, Downtown Business Association, Whispers of Hope, or other nonprofit organizations that serve the needy and citizens at large. We envision such a group being able to approach other cities of similar size that are grappling with similar issues and constraints to get a sense of best practices in terms of supporting the needy and making them feel valued in our community. Allow for public consultation, town hall meetings, surveys, and rallies for citizens to register their concern and offer solutions. Provide input from council together with our local RCMP detachment on the best means of getting the resources needed by the RCMP to effectively deal with the drug and crime issues plaguing our community. The analysis already forwarded to council members, clearly showed the effects of having a larger police force presence in our city during the flood of 2018. We will be making this statement public, and we will be continuing to actively recruit people to our newly found organization. It is our sincere wish to have open, honest dialogue and discussion in order to find positive solutions for the continued growth and success of this city. We are ready and available for discussion and action. We would ask that these requests to council be brought forward at tonight's meeting for resolution of our requests. We thank you for taking the time to listen to us and to consider our perspectives and recommendations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're kind of getting a bit off topic, I guess, because we're still on the department managers' reports. So this topic will be addressed as well later in the meeting. On the regular meeting, yes. You're right. I thought we had it on this, but I'm reading those. Yeah. Okay, a motion to accept the manager's report. Councilor Thompson. All those in favor? And we are moving then to proposed bylaws for discussion, open projects, corporate services. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. Last year we had, prior to the election, we had several bylaws that were in development and up for some discussion that died at the time of the election. And so I did attach copies of both the smoke and vape-free places bylaw and the secondhand dealers and pawnbrokers bylaw into your package for today. This is not bringing those forward for discussion. It was more just to find out what council's appetite is to do with those. Is that something that either of those topics are something that council currently sees as worth pursuing, or is that something that should just remain back on the shelf until some later time?
Council, that's the question. Councillor Moslin?
Your worship, thank you. I think we've heard from the public, as well as from ourselves, that there are challenges with us, with our bylaws, our current bylaws, whether it be in definitions or terms. These look like they look like okay preliminary bylaws. For me, they're not a priority though, Mayor. Yeah, okay, but I really would like to see staff spend more time trying to tackle the issues that the public and we're trying to identify.
I think one of the things here that does speak to a current issue is the smoking bylaw. That at this point in time, the Whispers kitchen area would be a non-smoking area surrounding and internally in the building, but they can walk across to the park and smoke. Now, I'm suggesting that we look at a non-smoking in parks and key boulevards as part of what we look at to tighten up smoking within the city. I also think that we need to designate some smoking areas for those people who are in need of cigarettes or smoking. But at this point in time, I think that one in my mind has priority over the second one that Kevin has introduced. Councillor Zelinski and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made this request in the past, and Councillor Moslin kind of brought it up as far as we're dealing with our bylaws. Don't know what our bylaws are. Can you please get us a list of what the headings of all our bylaws, please? So that we know whether we have a bylaw on an issue or not. So whether it's the table of contents.
I think we already have that.
I haven't seen it, but maybe I missed it.
It's on the website. Yeah, but it's not complete.
It does, but it doesn't have all of them. That's what I'm saying. And if you go to their website, we get 20 electrical bylaws. We've got, I don't know how many 5-year financial plans. So just a condense of, smoking bylaw, lawyering bylaw, just so that we know what kind of titles we have out there would be great.
Point taken. Councillor Thompson.
Through you to Kevin, these bylaws are already prepared, and you were just bringing them back if council wanted to consider them?
So these bylaws are, at least in the draft state. The smoking and vape-free places bylaw was presented to council in September and again in October. And that's where it kind of stopped. There had been some changes proposed to the direction that the previous council had been steering. And so at this point, those changes have not been implemented. The bylaw is still very much in a draft state, but this was more just to find out what the will is is this a priority, or is this something that should be put on the back burner until sometime in the future?
Just to add to this quickly, so corporate services is a different department to development, engineering, and planning. Business licensing and definitions in those bylaws would fall more under Dolores's department. This is more mine and Kevin's. So like we have room in some of our schedules to proceed with some
a plentiful supply of hydrogen gas in the store.
All right. We have room somewhere throughout the next couple months to proceed with these bylaws or not. We're just trying to find out what council's appetite is to wanting to proceed with them. So the smoke and vape-free places one is what I'm currently hearing would be a priority on our side to proceed with, while the other one can kind of go on the back burner and maybe come back later in the year,
right,
unless we hear something different.
Right, and again, just one more point, that it could relate to cannabis retail when it comes to the park access and smoking there as well. Councillor Cron.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. I think we do need that secondhand dealer pawnbroker bylaw.
You worked on it before with council?
No, we had talked about it, right? But it is something A lot of people are complaining about theft, and it's just one more avenue that we can hope will help. And the other comment is, yeah, people are smoking cigarettes, and then if we have, or vaping, and if we have that, like I believe that bylaw needs to be beefed up. Still have an issue that people seem to think it's okay to smoke a joint in a park, but you're not allowed to drink a beer in a park, so I think they're the same, so, yeah.
Okay, currently our cannabis controls are just the cigarette controls, right?
Yeah.
So the provincial cigarette rules. So are we giving you the information you need here? It looks like the smoking bylaw would be paramount, but at this point, hearing from Daniel that they do have some work time available to look at this other one, that we go ahead with both of them at this point. If they're in draft form, it would mean coming back to us, talking about the details.
Okay, just maybe for my own clarification then, on the smoke and vape-free places, the previous council had expressed some concern that it was one bylaw that covered both tobacco and cannabis, and I guess really anything else that you could possibly light up, and whether that should be split. And I'm just wondering if council has some guidance on whether effort should go into splitting tobacco away from cannabis, or whether we do one thing that's sort of all-encompassing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I got the question correct, is the defining question, do we deal with cannabis smoking as a liquor control or as a tobacco product? And that will give you some direction. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so the way it's currently worded is smoking, and that was suggested by the previous council as possibly something that should be split.
Separated out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did some work on smoking bylaw previously. This comes under a health protection piece. So it's smoke is smoke is smoke. If it does damage to somebody, then it's more about protection of health. And, you know, if you got kids in the park, whether it's cigars or cigarettes or cannabis or vaping or whatever it is, it still has a potential for secondhand smoke. So I would look at it more under the guise of, of a health.
Not separating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that seems to be our thinking from staff, that it be one, that we look at it all together, that cigarettes and cannabis are equally as dangerous, or not. Councilor Carrara.
Yeah, yes, I like that one. And then I was gonna argue it, and then I thought, if you smoke pot and then drive a car, of course if you're I used to be a smoker, so I'd be smoking, driving a car and dropping cigarettes and lighting things and playing with my ashtray. So I guess in that way, they're both bad. It's just like if a car pulls up and people get out and go into the park, right? And have a cigarette and get back in their car, that's not an issue. If I park a car, go into the park and down a couple of beer and get back in my car, that's an issue. So I think it's the same with the cannabis. So, it's not an easy.
My heart goes out to people who are addicted to cigarettes that need a place to go. I mean, it's 10% or less of the population at this point, but I think we still need to respect some opportunity for people to partake in a designated area. But that's the detail we can discuss when we go.
And actually, that would work for what I want as well.
Right.
Basically, if it was a designated area.
Yeah.
Right, not just everybody and their dog, like not whatever they want.
No, I agree. So that is a yes. Let's go ahead with both of those. Do you need a motion on it? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down to events delegation.
Parks and public access. Parks.
Oh, okay, yes, parks and public access. My one comment here to kick it off is that this is the piece of legislation that we took from another community that allows us to go in and tear down people's tents and throw their stuff in the garbage if they're not packed up by supper time. I think it's a brutal thing to do, and I hope that we can reconsider that portion of it, that we find a way to deal with it as we did before, where we applied a certain amount of humanity to these situations, and that we look at the fact that if we're going to be plagued with that camping problem on the waterfront, that we look at an alternative that we can offer to those people that are stuck in that situation and not force them into that desperate situation. Councillor Moslin.
Your Worship, I find that this, once again, this is a shopping cart full of bylaws.
Yeah.
And there's that issue that you're talking about. There's also one that's near and dear to me, and that's trails.
And motorized or non-motorized.
Yeah, and all of that. And that's just holus bolus all put into this one big, I don't know if it helps our bylaws. I mean, you can't even search them on the website. Right. You have real difficulty, they're not all listed on the website. I haven't seen a complete list of existing bylaws yet. Councillor Zelinski was pointing that out earlier. And now we're going to go take some that are relatively clear and put them all in one big pot. I did sort of giggle about that removes archaic language. I thought, oh, well, that must refer to me. Anyhow, I do also worry about civil rights. I mean, this is a curfew bylaw. If you're out on the trails between 11 and 7, you're eligible for a $50 fine. I mean, this is
graduated fine.
This is all curfew.
Yeah, I think.
And I understand what it's pointed at. I do. I understand it's pointed at this population that we are trying to cope with. However, that means that somebody who's staying at our mobile, our trailer park, goes for a summer stroll at 1 o'clock in the morning to see the stars on a trail. Oops, sorry, $50.
So I think clearly, what we're seeing is that the staff is trying to put this together into packages for review. Daniel, is that what we're seeing here? That you're looking at these as things that need to be dealt with, but grouping them make it easier to identify the problem?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's actually for example, the trails bylaw that Councillor Moslin mentioned. The label of it was a off-highway vehicle use bylaw or something like that that existed, and nobody of staff really knew it existed. And that's where it comes back to our bylaw library. We've recognized already last year that the bylaw library needs a serious overhaul. Right. Being down to only 3 people in the corporate department for the last year and a half before the flood didn't help to get caught up on some of these projects. Adding Kevin last year to the department again to bring us to full complement is helping. We're starting to get caught up on projects, and making a searchable library available online with current and active bylaws is on our work plan. I, again, don't know when exactly this will be done. It involves multiple people to get this done.
How many bylaws do we have?
Well, we're at bylaw number 2057. I have no idea how many are actually active.
Right.
We have a pretty good register, but it's not complete and it's not accurate, so I don't want to put something out to the public and to council even in a way where I'm not sure what's active and up and running and current. What I wanted to point out quickly, the curfew part was strictly meant for the parks as far as I know, so that's something that we can easily adjust. The reason being there, this was how it was put in, so we've been trying to amalgamate the old parks bylaw along with the amendment of the parks bylaw, along with integrating the 4 lines that came out of, or the 4 sentences that came out of the off-road vehicle access bylaw or something like that into one bylaw. So all of staff actually knows where to look when we're looking into anything that has to do with parks or trails and public spaces. That kind of all has to do with the same area.
So you not rush to get this to us on the 25th of March meeting? Is that pushing it? Kevin? No.
So just also to clarify, any language relating to curfews is straight out of the original bylaw. Literally the changes that were made here, and it was actually done to allow us to bring the next bylaw forward. The changes partly were to take the keywords out of Bylaw 1682, the off-highways vehicle regulation, which even in its original state was fully redundant by the Parks bylaw, but there was no clarification that said the Trans-Canada Trail was a trail, which should be common sense, but to be very clear, we brought that forward in this consolidation of the bylaws, but it failed to allow, for example, for exemptions for emergency services and city employees. Every time a city employee operates a lawnmower in a park, they are violating the current Parks and Public Spaces bylaw. Every time the garbage is collected along the trail, which is using either the mighty truck or a quad, that's violating the bylaw. So this was some very small cleanups to allow that. The portion relating to overnight camping and those structures was the amendment that was brought into effect in sorry, I don't have the amendment to 1959, so it'll be 1959A 1. That language has not changed in this. This was strictly consolidating and making a few minor adjustments.
Right, Councillor Moslin?
Yeah, consolidating is right, but it boils down to the definition of park. And if you take a look at that, it is quite a large definition now, because it includes all dedicated public parks, except it doesn't include the dog park, where animals are allowed to be off leash. And it doesn't include the cemetery.
Do I hear you volunteering to work on this?
Hey, you know what? If they don't write it, I'll write it.
No.
They won't want it.
Well, I think your participation is always appreciated to go into the detail of these things. So again, I ask the question, is this too quick to get it back? It's a complex. You figure you can have something in front of us, but...
It doesn't sound like we're talking major, like a ground-up rewrite. So, no, I don't think that's
all right.
Too rushed.
Councillor Thompson.
For you, Kevin, the hours up in the park, that was for, at the request, I believe, of the bylaw enforcement officer to deal with the homeless that are setting up camps along the river.
Correct.
And so it's that was the intent, so that they can go in there, they can set up a tent and spend the night. They got to be out in the morning for when it's other use. Now, Kevin can confirm that.
Right, we're not going to get into debating that at this point, but Councillor Moss.
Well, first off, you have to be out of the park by 11, so you're not sleeping there. And I also wonder about, well, what is the city's jurisdiction about on provincial lands? Some of our flood areas, and if we turn North Rockville into a big flood area, are we just going to make, mark camping grounds for those who don't want to camp?
So adding that to the complexity.
So the jurisdiction over provincial lands by the bylaw, and I understand, what we're aiming to bylaw at. I just wonder, don't we tread on thin ice, Mayor, when we make a bylaw applicable to one citizen and not applicable to another?
I think there's some work to do on this. I think the intention of it has been good, but I don't think it serves our purpose at this point. So we'll look at it.
Or maybe Kevin can just clarify was I incorrect on that?
So the original bylaw, this goes back previous iterations of the bylaw, about a person shall not be in a park between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's long-standing. The addition that was made more recently was regarding the temporary shelters, and that was brought in as a result of Victoria and Abbotsford. And those were court cases.
2016.
Yeah, and those were court cases, and so it was decided at the time that an amendment should be brought into our bylaw that fit what the courts were handing down as their decisions.
And I would just throw in my 2 cents worth to Les Johnson, GFTV. Craft a bylaw that doesn't up spending money in court, period. I mean, it's easy to craft a bad law that you get dragged into court for by some pro bono lawyer. I know there's one around here that loves to attack our city. Just please keep us out of court. Kind of, they blew the budget last time.
Good point. Yes, Nigel.
I wonder, Your Worship, if the campground on City Park is a contravention straight away.
No, there's a separate campground bylaw that deals with the campground regulations.
Overrides it. Okay, so Kevin, you have your working papers there in terms of bringing this back and giving us a chance at a kick at the can here. Sounds like there'll be public input at that stage too, so that we will be able to iron out some of the details of how this affects citizens. Thank you very much. And the events delegation, I know this one because it came up some months ago, but I think it's an excellent recommendation here that would allow us to relieve ourselves of some of the minor decisions around the use of alcohol in parks. And so we would deal with the large events as a decision of council, but the small events would be handled by staff. Comments? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and this did come up in January. We had a late request for an event, and it was a bit of effort to get it back onto the agenda and in front of council prior to the event. Right now, we're looking at to allow for time to get on the agenda to get through council. Events would need to apply probably about 30 days prior to their event to make sure that we had time to put it through. So the suggestion here is that for single day events only, multi-day events would still need to come to council, and for events that would be expected to draw more than 500 people, so events of a significant size, which would include things like the GFI and CanaFest, those would still need to come to council for approval, but we're suggesting that for the smaller events, slow pitch tournament, that those types of permits could be issued by staff directly.
The scotch tasting, the wine tasting, would those fall under the category of staff approved?
That would fall under, because it would be a single day and not expected to draw a crowd of more than 500.
Right. Councillor Zelinski and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was something about noise bylaw in there too, was there?
Yeah, we added the noise bylaw in there as well, because that way, if an event is looking at going, later than the bylaw permits, that for a small event, for a one-off event, that could be grouped in for decision by the corporate officer and the events coordinator.
And just to follow up to Kevin is, this is being proposed to be taken to regular council meeting in a couple of weeks, so we have time to look at it, I'm sure. The biggest thing for me personally is if there's going to be a beer garden someplace, even for one night, and there's going to be noise, we're probably going to get phone calls. So just the information part of it, as far as, hey guys, this is what's happening this weekend, is the big thing for me. So I don't know if we can solidify that in the bylaw or not, but yeah, that's going to be one of my issues.
So just in response to that, so for example, right now we do the weekly event update or weekly update, which includes upcoming events. We would absolutely ensure that anything like that that comes in for permitting would be listed as upcoming events. If council wants to put a limitation on this, that the noise bylaw, for example, can only be extended to a certain time by staff, and anything that was to go beyond that needed to come before council, that would be literally 2 sentences perhaps to add to this, and would not be a significant edit.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Just a comment on small single-day events. I know that there are small events that can happen on a weekend. So that you would say would come to council. You're not asking for the authority to approve but I have snow pitch or whatever, that's not a huge event.
Well, for right now, we are suggesting just those single-day events. If council would like to see an edit that would permit a small event that does span over a course of a weekend, again, that's a couple of sentences to adjust to this that would perhaps allow that, but still on those larger events, the CanaFest, the GFI, something else that we haven't considered yet, would still come to council. That would certainly, I would entertain that as a easy edit on this.
I think that should happen.
Okay, Councilor Zelinski?
Just a process question, Mr. Mayor. Since you're suggesting that some of these bylaws go till the March 25th meeting, I believe it is, do you want our comments beforehand so that you can propose changes before that, or did you want the discussion to happen live on the 25th?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It would be better to have the suggestions beforehand, so we could include them in the bylaw, and we wouldn't have to edit the bylaw on the fly. So we can do a clean 1, 2, 3 resolutions and be done with that.
Yeah, if it's on council, we'll debate it internally a bit. Les?
Yeah, Les Johnson again, GFTV. This isn't really about the bylaw so much as the actual people who are doing this in staff. I just wanted to suggest that, like for an example, a number of years ago, Zach Warlow was doing the live entertainment for Canada Day, and he'd first done it in the baseball diamond location, and the next year he came and he did it in City Park, and because he couldn't put up a fence and charge admission, he bore all the costs, but he did it. I mean, I helped out. The next year he wanted to do it again, but when he went to make the application for that, what he found was that some group had actually got their application in beforehand and put on, I don't know, a play or something like that. And he was a bit chagrined because he put in a lot of work, and it's a significant amount of effort and a certain amount of financial output. And what it appeared was that whoever on staff took that event booking had no idea or did not remember or didn't know that he had done this 2 years previous, and he wanted to do it again, and nobody got in touch with him to ask him, are you thinking of doing this again? Because apparently staff here at sometimes have amnesia. And I would like to see or suggest that maybe staff could remedy that, so that if you have some organization, some individual who's putting in an awful lot of effort to put on an event for the community out of their own goodness and pocketbook, that they not get screwed around that way. It's a minor thing, but...
Yeah, it's preemptive thinking, but I don't think they have any memory loss. I'm the one at the table here that has memory loss. So I think we can avoid those kinds of things in future, and certainly bringing it to our attention is going to help us, help the staff deal with that. Councillor Thompson.
Just a comment on Les's comment. I think it's incumbent upon people, and I hear what you're saying, but if they know that they're going to be having an annual event, to let the city know that I'm going to be doing this on an annual basis, and perhaps then there could be a notation made. But to expect our staff to keep track of that and then to phone, I mean...
I understand what you're saying. It's just that it's not always that easy or clear to be able to find things or even know things, like there is a opening date for applications and it's first come, first gets in type thing, when you're making an assumption, and I understand assumptions are a bad thing to make, but when you're putting in a lot of effort into these kinds of things and you're making an assumption and you get caught unawares late in the game after you've expended significant effort and who knows how much money, and have to basically piss that all away, excuse my language, it's disheartening, because you might notice he doesn't put on events here at all anymore. And the last couple of years when he was putting them on, they were in Christina Lake. That should send a message to the city.
So, right, you know, this is sensitizing us to that issue. Daniel had to stand up then.
Thank you. So as part of our RDF funding that we received from the province this year, there is a events manager included in that. In the past, the city didn't have a full-on events manager in our capacity, so we aren't managing the event. People have to come to us to let us know when they're doing certain things. However, we're also working on an update to our website to allow events booking a little bit cleaner on the website, and this would maybe be one of those things to say, hey, could you, with an updated calendar, or are you planning on doing this annually or monthly or whatever? And in that way, there would be a better record. I've only taken over this department in the last 2 years, so I'm seeing things and I'm fixing them. I can't fix them all in one day. It's not possible. So but I hear Les and I hear council, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, Councillor Crocker.
Yeah, because we had issues with that before, not just Zach, but I think it was the fly-in and maybe the fall fair, or something where the speaker or the electrical truck that we have, that we allow them to use, was booked here and wasn't booked there, but they're here,
Again, events coordination.
Yeah, and so that'll go a long way to stop it, because you can imagine if all of a sudden GFI set up and somebody threw in an application for something, and it kicked out the GFI.
Yeah, quickly to that too, is in the past year we created a part-time events coordinator position at Public Works. Rod Fofnow's been taking care of that, and so I haven't heard of anything where we double booked equipment.
Right.
We've gotten on a calendar that we share in staff by now where events are. I still see all the events requests coming by, and there's a section on there now for booking different things garbage cans down to that level, where we can try to make sure that we have enough stock available to allow that for certain events. So we've overhauled this process a lot, and we hope to even fine-tune it some more.
And I'm impressed how much the city puts into special events in the community. Councillor.
Question answered, thank you.
Okay. Further. Okay.
Do you want to move that motion here?
Do we need a motion on this?
In the request for decision, Mayor, there is a proposed motion.
Just to move it to the 25th.
To the 25th of March.
I'll move that, Mayor.
And it is moved. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is fees and charges, solid waste collection, and I have to tell you that the regional district's struggling with the same issue of coverage and cost, and so this is not new information for the region as well. Juliette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so during the process of developing the budget and a review of the year end, I did quite an extensive review of the costs of solid waste pickup, and we will have to implement an increase of $2 a month in order to cover the anticipated costs for 2019. And that factors in that if this bylaw goes through, it wouldn't, we're already 4 months into the year by the time that would come into effect. So we haven't had an increase since early 2017.
Councillor Zelinski?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can someone tell me why we went from bi-monthly to weekly? Bi-weekly to weekly? Why the extra coverage? I think that's what I saw in the report, right? At some point in time, it was a bi-weekly pickup. Now it's a weekly pickup. Can anyone tell me?
Kevin?
Change of provider. The contract changed, and the new provider is running a different schedule.
Did the council of the day okay that? Because it obviously added cost come with it. So
contract is through the regional district.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
So they're picking up solid waste like every week.
Yes.
Yes.
And then alternating
Organic diversion
And
That's every week.
recycling.
and
And
recycling.
recycling, they're doing all three every week?
No, not recycling.
Yeah.
Recycling every 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay.
Solid, one way, and then either recycling or the compostables.
Compost is every week.
Yes.
Oh, okay, well, then I guess I gotta
Okay,
take
we're
my
really confused
compost
about
out
what
tomorrow.
RDKB send out literature and so on, which people can read actually.
I don't read anything from
I do.
government.
Just mentioning.
Just to let you know, Mayor, I don't know why it is, but committee of the whole meetings always fall on the day when I have to get out my recycling, my compost, and my garden, and get here. But I do, for my own clarification, how many bags are then included in the monthly charge per pickup? Is that one bag,
One.
2 bags?
I believe.
One bag?
One bag, 1 bin.
Per week? Okay, and the extra bags are $3. Okay.
Never used it.
So the budget implications,
So once every 2 weeks, you've got 3. You've got your garbage, your compost, and your recycling.
Actually, that's 4. There's 2 recycling bins.
Okay.
That's on 2 different calendars, too.
and it's out of the garbage here.
So I have included this amount in the budget, so,
Yeah.
so we're anticipating expenses of about 259,000, and the total revenues at 262, but that includes the tag bags. And the other thing is too, since we went to the weekly pickups, the actual quantity, tonnage of garbage that's gone to the landfill has actually increased 18%. So I mean that, and there's obviously a cost to that because we have to pay tipping fees for that.
So we have one of the most progressive garbage systems, management systems in the region, at least. All of the other region is asking for organic diversion, and there's a reluctance to put the money out in our area here. We're saying, why aren't we doing our commercial organics? And what we're hearing is that they're going to have some kind of composter system, digester system on site before they can handle that kind of volume. But it's interesting, that's the direction we're going. And the other big issue is that all of us in the region are having to put more money into cover up at the end of the life cycle of the dump.
Landfill.
So we need a motion on this to move it forward for 3 readings on on March 25th. Councillor Thompson? All those in favor? No one opposed? Thank you very much. And you're also here for the 5-year financial plan. So this is one that we beat up, and I think we're pretty close to agreement on it. Except for.
So noted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something. As the regional district has included a contribution from the city in their transit budget for operations that's over and above the requisition. It's for $13,135, and that hasn't been included in these budget numbers because I just found out about it last week. So I guess if I could get a resolution to maybe include that when I bring the budget back for first 3 readings, along with the 16,000 that staff is requesting for the library.
Yes, Councillor Thompson.
I'll leave that one.
And without a seconder on it, Councillor Maudlin, maybe because it's a financial decision, we have a firster and a seconder. So. Further discussion on this?
Can I ask a question?
So, yes.
So how much over the requisition was it? Was it
13,000.
Was it $13,000 over the requisition? Or
Yes, they had, what they did with the budget was they included it as an operating contribution from the city, so it doesn't become part of the the requisition, and then the requisition amount is over and above that. And I believe it's about that. I believe the contribution from the city for the transit on the requisition will be about 24,000.
Okay.
Another urgent attention to the transit system that we have at this point, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I hope I don't have to reiterate my concerns with our budget, or the fact that we're going from $6 million into reserves down to 6,000, and we still don't know what the flip's going to throw at us as expenditures. My one question is surplus, 2018 surplus, how much was it and where did it go?
We're just finalizing our numbers for the year end. We had the auditors in last week, and we, obviously how the year end was going to end up depends on whether they required any adjusting entries. So I'm hoping I should be able to bring the final year end quarter for results to the 25th.
Okay.
So I don't have that number off the top of my head right now.
Follow-up questions, Mr. Mayor. Can you put the 5-year financial plan up there? It's just a little further down. So just to educate me here a bit, keep going. Keep going some more. Right there. So under revenues, fourth one down, percentage of revenue tax, what's that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's our 1% that utilities pay in lieu of property taxes.
Okay. And well, on there, just above that, parcel and frontage taxes, 161,000 this year, next year, and it drops right off. Can you tell me why?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, that's the fire truck parcel tax.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, actually, Councillor Thompson's motion is to include the 13,000 in our budget.
Item 16, both items.
Both.
So the library grant application and
I guess that would be appropriate at this point to include that. And you do?
Yep.
Further discussion? All those in favor? And the next motion is that we go forward with this for 3 readings on March 25th, regular meeting. Councillor Thompson, discussion on that? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Is that it? Okay, and so we are open to the public for questions or further discussion on any topic that you wish. Les had his hand up first, and then Nigel.
I didn't see it when you were discussing the events delegation, but one of the suggestions here was that once an event is permitted to appear on the community events calendar, that would be useful to people in the community.
You'll have to speak up.
Sorry. The suggestion was that once you've permitted an event, or staff has permitted an event,
Right.
that it appear on the community events calendar on the website.
And then would it be on our internal communication as well? Daniel?
Yeah, one of the items that's been noted for the past couple of years is there's no clear community calendar that has really everything on it. The Boundary Country has a calendar that deals with tourism-style events.
Right.
The city has an internal calendar for our events. There's the rec department has a calendar for their events. Part of the job of the RDF events manager that will be working hopefully for 2 years for us, and the marketing person will be to create an actual portal where we can get everybody together into a joint sort of calendar where people can automatically update their own things. That's kind of my vision.
Right. Further on that lesson?
Yeah, that's what the calendar and what's up in grandforks.com was supposed to be, but as you can tell, it no longer exists because 2 reasons. One, everybody goes to Facebook. That's it. Facebook, Facebook, Facebook. Nobody actually goes to the website. And 2, it's a lot of work. It's an awful lot of work. You need a paid position to do that. So that's why I no longer have a calendar on my website.
Okay.
After 8 years or whatever of trying.
Certainly a target for the new events manager. Kate?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just actually on that, have those events manager and marketing coordinator positions been designated or decided hired yet?
Can you update us on that? And
Your Worship, we had a close off, I believe it was early last week or
Thursday.
Time is going really quick, but we do have 9 applicants, so we have a steering committee of the DBA and the chamber and ourselves that will be reviewing the applicants and making a decision.
That was only for the events side? So
That's just for the events manager, yes.
The other one is closing any day now.
Tomorrow.
So yeah, that was my further question. So there's the events manager and then there's a marketing coordinator position. Okay, and then just further to, you mentioned 9 applications. Are those predominantly local or out of town? Like,
I think we have a mix. I think there was likely maybe 70% local. But yeah, we're going to be doing a short list here fairly quickly, and I think we're meeting on next Monday. So we should have some answers really quick.
Pamela and then Nigel?
I didn't have a question referring to the functions that for Grand Forks scheduling function is back to Whisper of Hope.
Right.
So, sorry, Pamela Kennedy. I wrote my question down earlier, so excuse me for reading from my phone. The question is if Whisper of Hope is not required to have a business license, is the current location zoned for what they planned at the building? And what about their plan to maybe have food cooked at a different location and then brought to the premises? How does that fit into the zoning and the licensing as well? Because we were all told that there's not a proper running kitchen there, so food would be cooked off-site and then brought in. And does both places have, say, food handling, schooling, all permits and licensing that's required in zoning?
So in general, any of those things conflicting with them using that premises?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I stated earlier, our definition for a restaurant is that just food is prepared and sold. It doesn't say what preparation means. It doesn't mean that it has to be cooked. It doesn't say, it's not very specific. So prepared could be packaged or, yeah, so that's currently what the definition in our zoning bylaw.
Thank you. So to answer, Pamela, I can't see anything that you said there at this point that would be a violation of their right to operate there.
Okay, is there anything in the licensing zoning permits requiring, say, food handling? And is where WorkSafe BC would step in and question this being a source of food being distributed through town?
So they would be subject to building inspection, electrical inspection.
Yes, they have been in contact, I believe, with the building inspector. They will request a fire inspection, and as far as I know, they're working, well, and they are working with Interior Health. And I think in the letter that she sent out, she did say something about workers' comp or something like that. I'm not sure about that one, but.
Okay. Nigel's been patient here, Les, if you let him speak first.
Your Worship, I can hear stomachs rumbling, so I'll keep it very short actually. But first, I'd like to ask permission for 15 seconds of a personal thank you. My thanks goes to Kathleen, because it's probably the last time I will see her, and maybe the last time you will see her. And I understand that the Hamilton, I think it's the Spectator, I think she's got ideas to change it from Hamilton Spectator to Hamilton Gazette, because we've taught her well here, I believe. Sorry about that.
roasting her tonight at the regular meeting.
I'm in it for one more.
Now, you will see her again at the Pulitzer Prize ceremony.
Anyway, she's been a delight to be here, and she owes me a trip up Observation Mountain, but the snow's got to go first. Couple of quick ones, and that I endorse the idea about publicity and that sort of thing, and information. That is absolutely critical to get people going. And that guy who's coming in as an events coordinator is going to be great, I believe. And also I endorse the situation on bylaws. I've been trying to find the bylaw about snow removal, and I failed miserably. And so I'm afraid to say, has Public Works, on the letter to the paper this last time, the roads, the tarmac on the roads have worked well for both the streets and the avenues. The sidewalks are abysmal and have been abysmal. Last week, 3 ladies fell and broke bones. I only hope that we've got good insurance within the city, because there could be a class action lawsuit against you or something like that, heaven forbid. This morning I fell, and as luck would have it, I fell on my right gluteus maximus rather than on my hip, because otherwise I'd be claiming after some help for you. I mentioned it last committee of the whole, and the snow clearance has been mixed. I would like to suggest that I will get hold of the bylaws and have a word with the operations manager and try and sort of help him, or if he wants help, which he probably doesn't, sort it out so that next year we can be much, much better off. Plan ahead. Any news about the 2nd Street project? I heard rumour that it was going to be just for old age seniors, old age people. I don't know if that's true, but anyway. The other thing that was quite interesting was Mr. Robertson, the Minister of the BC Housing, has invited the county to go and council to go and look at some of the other developments and so on. Would it be a good idea if the council invited Mr. Robertson to come down and look at the site? Has anybody been down to look at the site and say, it won't work, in my view? The other thing that is also of seriousness is 19th Street. There's only one way in and one way out. Apparently it's okay. I really wonder. That's about it, I think. Oh, accepting that Councillor Moslin, in his report, he said, community charter, that the council to build the community. I think there was a word missing off there. It should have read, the council to build the community centre. But anyway, the community centre is one of my pet peeves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyone think wanted to say something?
Yeah, in regards to the, I believe the snow clearing is a policy, and that's why it may not be up, or it should be under the policy section. So check there.
That's what I thought, but I didn't come across that.
And there is no new information from BC Housing on the 2nd Street project. Amber?
Will Whispers of Hope require a parking variance at the proposed location?
No.
And why is that?
There's no parking variance required there?
A lot of restaurant, 30-seat or 60-seat restaurants should have to have parking.
Walk in. Councillor Krog?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Like, at one point, we're saying it's a restaurant and it's commercial, but it's not commercial, and it's not for profit, but is it, you know, when it comes to, that has always had limited parking. That's one of the flaws of that building in that area. I did see something, I think, from Whispers that said that they're gonna direct their people to go park in Selkirk, which is, half of that parking lot is private property. Way down there, or this end is city. Credit union is a parking lot, part city, but mostly credit union. There's this strip here that's utilized by the funeral home and City Hall. So if you open up any kind of, if I opened a restaurant, I'd have to apply for a parking variance. And they even said in one of their letters that they knew that and were willing to pay it. So.
This isn't a development. It's not a building permit. It's not a development permit. This is not a new building. So we would have to have variances for every single building on Market Street, pretty much, and on 4th, and on 2nd, and on 3rd, because the bulk of them don't have parking that would meet the requirements of the current bylaw. That building was built prior to the zoning bylaw going in with the parking requirements, so it's grandfathered in just like every other building downtown. If it's a new development and it meets the criteria for a development permit or a new development, then it would come to council. But we don't have anything in our business license bylaw that states that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last comment, then I'm going to.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you do. If you take over a hair salon and it's required to have whatever 2 parking spaces, off-street parking, that type of thing. If I take it over for a different use, then that's where parking changes can come into play. So.
So you're sitting exactly opposite to what our planning department just said?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because it keeps changing.
And moving to Les.
Okay, so I'm under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't here before 2004, but before Brian had Chain Reaction downtown, he actually had a little cafe in that thing, right? So it has been a place where food and drink has been served in the past. Does that grandfather any kind of possibilities for anything for Whispers of Hope or not?
It would have been a 12-seat when Brian had it.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with the interpretation of that situation by our planning department at this point. And wrapping it up.
Oh, and no staff parking. Sorry, there isn't any off-street parking.
So I just want to clarify what I think I'm hearing is, I'm hearing our planning department saying, once a building is constructed, it's a new development, and whatever use is in that development, that's what dictates that the parking installs. I hear Councillor Krug saying, well, different businesses can come and go out of that building. So when a business license is applied for, that's what clues in how many parking spots you need. Do I have both stories sort of correct?
Both contradictory.
Yeah, we need to update the business license bylaw and to make it consistent with other, but right now it's our subdivision development servicing bylaw. So when it's an actual development, they have to put in the required number of parking spaces for that type of development or business. And so it's something we're working on and harmonizing our bylaws.
Okay, but it's not a technicality that council can use to stop this from happening.
No, but it's critical with our planning bylaw, the definitions, and how we're going to use core commercial. That's a very big part of how we deal with things.
Yeah, so currently, hardly any of the buildings on Market or 2nd or 3rd or 4th actually have the required amount of parking, including these ones. I don't think I believe they have 0 parking because that's all public parking. So you couldn't put any businesses in there. You technically couldn't put any businesses in a bunch of the buildings on Market either, because every business needs at least 1 parking spot and needs staff parking, and currently most of them don't have that. So.
Yeah,
and that's why the pay.
Yeah, and I'm not going to debate, what's out there now. What I'm worried about is you take a warehouse, let's say the Greyhound terminal, that has 2 parking spots because there's nothing in it. You turn it into a 50-seat restaurant, and they only need 2 parking spots. Doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Well, it's also part of the zoning, right? So you have commercial core zoning, you're expecting that they're gonna require parking, but that's also why we do have approximately 1,000 parking spaces in the downtown core, including public parking. So we have, we have these parking spaces because, back in the horse and buggy days, we didn't need all these cars, but, so we have created parking, we do have public parking spaces all over to try to help mitigate for that. But this is a 100-year-old town, and we're working with that 100-year-old infrastructure.
And will this wrap it up, Councillor?
I don't know. So if we amend these bylaws, which I think need to be amended, I think that's going to be one of our goals for this year. Are these facilities grandfathered in?
Are they retroactive?
If council wants to address this with the business licensing bylaw, so when a new business license come in and the new business requires more parking than the current business, then you could have them pay the $1,000 each time they're short, or, we really have to look into it and look at the implications of something like that, but it is something that we can look into, but currently it ties in with development, and when you're developing a new building. And so it's something we'll look into, see what other communities do, and especially small communities, and bring something back.
Yeah, the funding, see, I don't even wait to
Can I cut off debate?
Yeah, the funding goes to support public
Yes, ma'am.
parking.
So, Councillor Crosby.
I just have a question about what's being said. If a business license is not required by Whispers of Hope, then is that building, where that building is situated, are they in the proper zoning for
Yes, they
the
are.
building?
Yes, they are. We have to consider the fact that we have the Masons downtown, they're not a for-profit, they're not open to the public. We have Sunshine Valley Community Services, we have the women's group, we have a post office, we have, they're nonprofits, they're the library. But we do have a bunch of social type, and I believe Councillor Mawson touched on it earlier, and the mayor, is we have these social enterprises, and they do contribute to a thriving downtown. They are not for profit, they are not for gain, but people do come down and access those services. So this is something that, we will have to look into. It's not to be taken lightly. If you start wanting to say that a business, in the commercial core must be for profit and must be for gain, we will have to figure out where to put these other agencies, including the government office, because it's not for profit, it's not for gain. We're not for profit or for gain, like you were in community.
And the library and the art gallery.
The library, yeah, so they're all currently in commercial core zoning. We're not, but the government offices. So, like the Masons are, there's a lot of things that aren't for profit. So we do have to take a really, we have to look at this quite deeply. It's not something that we can just do quickly. So there are unintended consequences when you want to start throwing something out quickly. There are those unintended consequences. So we do have to look into it.
Okay, we are going to debate this in more detail when we move forward with where we put social housing, social business.
I just want to make one final, it'll be a final comment.
No power.
Maybe. It's unfortunate, and I feel for our downtown business, that the Whispers chose the entrance, the east or the west entrance to our city to have their soup kitchen. I think that the better location would be by the food bank. Out of the downtown core, people are going to the food bank. They could stop in and have a meal. If they're talking about the seniors, well, they're going to have to access, and they won't be accessing by walking. There's no ability for handicapped to access that building. I don't think it was well thought out. I think it's just another in your face. I am concerned that there are going to be needles, spent
Okay,
needles.
Councillor Thompson, I'm going to ask you to shorten it up to a finishing statement, please.
I will do that. There's going to be used needles, hopefully not with, and probably with fentanyl in it. That's going to be strewn not only in Lowe's Hagen Park, which is City Park, but the spray station and the tot lot.
Councillor Thompson, I think that you're spreading concerns here on your own personal opinions that are not taken by council.
There,
And I'm gonna.
I believe they are shared by.
At this point on further assumptions of what might happen there with needles and fentanyl and the rest of it.
Yep.
We have a drug problem, we know that.
But we don't need to exacerbate it by welcoming them into our downtown core.
Thank you. Okay, that is it, no more discussion. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Sure.
Councillor Moss, all those in favor? You could vote